welcome to Decomposing Worm, a worm analysis podcast. That's Clarence. He's the first-time reader and literary expert.
And that was Matias. He's read the story before.
In this 12-episode series, we're using critical theory to explore the superhero web serial Worm from a broader perspective, covering Worm in 6 300,000-ish word chunks.
Yes, and today is part 1 of book 2, Overview. So here we're going to close read arcs 9 through 14, and it'll be more of like a plot-based examination of the story in that kind of like linear chronological fashion, and we'll be pulling recurring or emerging themes as we go along.
Right, just like in our first overview episode, except hopefully today a little bit more directed and just overall more experienced. We learned how to be better.
Yes.
So if you haven't read arcs 9 through 14 yet, please do. This is a full spoilers discussion, and we're both going to be spoiling a lot and referencing a lot of things that's probably very confusing if you haven't read Worm or haven't read Worm in a very, very long time. As well, I'd also recommend maybe listening to We've Got Worm before or after or during or something related to this. In tandem, because it's going to help analyze this work. I did not have time to listen to all of We've Got Worm for these arcs. I stopped at Arc 11 Part 1, so I've missed some discussion. Well, I mean, I have listened to it, but it was a long time ago, so pardon me if I repeat something that they say in those parts, because I forgot. But okay, let's get into it. So what do you feel about this particular book of Worm, Clarence?
I really liked this one, like, a lot. Like, I mean, I did like the first 8 arcs, but this, like, the kind of development of, like, the writing style and, like, ability that, and the kind of, like, versatility, I guess, especially with the interludes, like, it really is, like, developing really well and is showcased here. Plus, it was just, like, a really fascinating sort of interaction and kind of, like, dynamic setup.
Yeah, just for context, for those who haven't read A Worm in a very long time, Arc 9 is the Ward's Interlude, right after Leviathan, and 14 is when the Slaughterhouse Nine leave Brockton Bay. So just for plot context, on Interludes, this had so many more. Arcs 1 through 8 had 10 interludes, right? There's 2 arcs that have 2. And this had, I'll let you all guess for a second. Just guess how many interludes arcs 9 through 14 had. 22. 22 interludes. And if you guys remember how much we talked about interludes in the first 8 arcs, we spent a lot of time on them. And so this time we actually had to basically skim over a couple. But yeah, so...
Which is so sad, because, like, each of them have such, like... They contribute so much. Like, they put together pieces of the whole context that we don't really get from a first-person narrative.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because there's 2 interlude arcs in this, basically. I mean, one is, like, not set apart. Arc 11, half of it is the Slaughterhouse 9, like, selection, candidate selection interlude. That's 8, right?
Oh.
Yeah. And then, of course, Arc 9 is the Ward's interlude arc. So it's interesting that this section has these 2 pretty large spans of time that Taylor is not really a part of.
Yeah. And it's also interesting too because, like, we get that, like, really, like, close look, especially at the wards at the beginning. But then for, like, a majority of the rest of, we're kind of, it's not quite as, like fully comprehensive, I think, of like, in the first 8 arcs, Taylor really, like, kind of, like, knew a lot of what was going on. And then with this one, she's much more, like, she has, like, her own thing that she's kind of doing. So we don't really we don't really keep tabs as much on some people that I think that's also kind of interesting.
That's a good point. That I mean, particularly in the Slaughterhouse 9 interludes, we, like, the scope really starts expanding, not just, like, in the world, right? I mean, we do definitely we do definitely get those where we expand out into the world. We get some looks at Cauldron and stuff. But just like in the city itself, right? I mean, we have a whole other, like with Rachel's interlude, that's a whole different section. With Theo's interlude, we set up this like other long quest arc that does not touch any other character in here. The city expands a lot more. Yeah. Anything else we should say before we actually get into the beat by beat summary, or the key moment by key moment summary? I guess I should say.
I don't know. I think we're ready.
All right,
ready to proceed.
So as usual, it's basically impossible to stop and mention every important beat of the story, every through line. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to consolidate them into particular moments, right? So we're not going to talk about every single character the first time they show up. We'll try to focus on the most important moments. That way we can just discuss them as a whole without getting slowed down with every single development. And if we skip some stuff, there's a small chance we forgot it, but also this podcast is, I already know it's going to be super long.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot we have to cut. So please don't be too mad at us for not talking about everything. And if there's something that you wished we'd cover, maybe go ahead and ask it in a question for us, and we'll discuss it there. All right. So we start with Arc 9 Sentinel, which is the Ward interlude arc. So we open up with Weld getting into the city. He's we learn that he's just a good old metal boy. He's just trying his best. Seems like a pretty decent guy. And he's the new leader of the wards. He's really
we see him first right in the Endbringer, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that like claps Taylor on the shoulder. But he gets really kind of like stuck in this kind of interim space of like what Pigott wants to happen, and kind of like his responsibilities in kind of like rebuilding a dynamic of the wards in the face of like this huge natural disaster. And then they're also kind of in the midst of like grieving and both individual and kind of shared. They're kind of coming to terms with all of that, and he's kind of stuck in the middle of it, which I think he is a good old metal boy, but it's a difficult position to be placed into.
Oh yeah, for sure. One thing I really want to make sure we mention is just how like controlled his life is, right? He's a case 53, right? So he doesn't have like, I don't know, he doesn't have people that are just loyal to him, right? Like parents are supposed to be. He's got, guardians, and it seems that Director Armstrong, right, back in New York, I think, is like a pretty, a decent father figure, especially if Weld turned out, this good of a boy. But like, there's still external motivations. Yeah, I mean, Director Armstrong wants Weld not just to be, the best and most healthy person. He wants to be the best, leader of the protectorate and etc. So Weld is in government housing where they're constantly monitored, right? That's something that we call out in Arc 10. He has a limited allowance that may be reduced if they found out that he doesn't eat, right? Pigott is like heaping these expectations and rules on him, and he's just like taking it.
Wait, is that how do you pronounce?
I think it's Pigott.
Pigott.
I think so. There is an official worm pronunciation guide, but I haven't looked at it in a very long time. So,
okay.
But this is our podcast, so we can do whatever we want. So
yes, but I want it to be correct.
There's going to be some names that's I'm going to pronounce it the way that I want it to be pronounced, even though Wildbow and others would disagree with me. I'm really sorry. Particularly a certain parrot of a certain parahuman. Okay, so
parrot.
So yeah, parent.
Parent. Okay.
It's a reference for those who know what I'm talking about.
Continue.
So Pigott is talking to Weld, and basically he's like, "You're going to go to high school. You're going to do well."
Also, why are they still going to high school? Like, why are they still taking classes?
Why are they taking civilian classes?
I mean, I know that like they have a lot of expectations and all of this, and like, but I
mean, I do think that any person in a position of power should, go through a high school curriculum and know basic maths and physics and
I fully
physics and
support
civics. But yes, Especially because he's made of metal. And he's going to go to normal school. He's going to have to sit in normal chairs.
Yeah.
Of course, this is all kind of a moot point considering Brockton Bay has no school right now. But,
yeah, that's what I was thinking also.
Yeah.
Is that they're kind of... She's acting like this is some, like, regular transfer sort of thing.
Yeah.
In the way that she, like, articulates it, but it's like, this is not that situation.
Mm-hmm,
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's just... They expect just, like, so much of all of them and him in particular, right? He's, like... You're going to go to school. You're going to go do well. You're going to, we're giving you, these leniencies. You're going to work these hours. You're going to go on these patrols. You have to do this in your off hours. You got to do this paperwork, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just like, it's so much.
It's so much to be asking of him.
And
there's not really any sort of consideration.
He's a teenager.
Of
indeterminate age, but still.
But it's still like, he's a kid,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so...
But that's kind of my opinion on, like, all of the awards.
That they're kids?
Yeah, like, there's all these expectations of them to be adults, but then also kids, and also, I don't know, there's so many expectations placed upon them, and, I don't know, they don't really have a lot of autonomy.
Yeah. As another side note that I forgot to put in here. Okay, I was really frustrated when I started writing the write-up for this book, because the moment I began, reading, I had 3 things just from this chapter, and I was like, oh my god, it's going to be possible. So let's very quickly, Weld recites the, power classification rhyme, right? Which is, how does it go? I don't remember it, but where it goes through the, 12 classifications. So it goes, mover, shaker, brute and breaker, master, tinker, blaster and thinker, striker, changer, trump and stranger. Note, this was before the election of 2016, so that word didn't have as many strong connotations. So what do you think of this?
I think it's very typical of human beings and societies to want to both create, like, categories to place people in, to, like, sort out things that they don't understand. And I think it's also typical of them to, like, make it into something like this, like the way to teach people is, like, in these, like, kind of nursery rhyme sort of things.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seemed, I don't know. It's interesting, the classifications, I guess. But it seemed like there were negative connotations to some of them as well.
Yeah, because they were used to classify villains first, is what we're told. Yeah. And then came to describe heroes. And so, like, Weld, multiple times, actually, people... Or he's concerned about it, and it comes up in someone else's narration, thinking that he's dumb, but he's not at all. He's just, he's made of metal. It's not his fault. He's not a muscle-bound jock, Not that makes you dumb either, but
people have different sort of intelligences.
Yeah.
For sure. Kinetic. Anyways.
Metallic.
Metallic.
All right, let's move on.
Yes.
Then we go through the rest of the arc, and we're going to skim over a lot of these interludes, even though I really want to talk about each and every one of them. But we have Flechette, we have Clockblocker, and Kidwin, not necessarily in that order. So through them, we see that the city is a mess. We get their perspectives on the situation, on each other. They're all kind of grieving, they're stressed out, and they kind of all feel like they need to do more.
Yeah. This particularly, like, going through each of them individually really kind of, like, made it clear, like, how much they are like a band-aid on this, like, still open wound of the city, right? And that they have that sort of frustration of not being enough, of not, meeting the expectations of the city, but then at the same time, like, they're dealing with the situation themselves of, like, of familial concern and, like, so each interlude kind of, like, elucidates that frustration of, like, they don't feel like they are doing enough in a professional capacity and in a, like, hero, world-saving, city-saving capacity, but then they're also, at the same time, individually dealing with the grief of losing team members and of, like, familial kind of concerns or, repercussions, all of this. So it's kind of, everything's kind of wrapped up together. And specifically, like, there were multiple different ones for each of them, but like Kidwin has a lot of like negative self-talk, where he's like, I don't mean anything to this team, I'm useless, all of this, where he kind of gets like stuck in this loop sometimes. And then I feel like this situation kind of like exacerbates a lot of that. And then like with Vista, where she's kind of like collecting these scars, and then Flechette, where she's like very kind of cautiously kind of feeling out the dynamic. Also wonderful.
The flirtatious
she's
stuff going on.
So
it's
funny.
Adorable. It's adorable.
And then also through all of them, we kind of get this real. We get this like reimagined, I guess, look at the landscape of the city, because water is just everywhere and just kind of around and present, and remaking the city in even a totally different way than how it changed, like the landscape, like in the middle of the battle.
I think there's just so much you could. An entire essay could just be written on just the setting in this particular section of Worm. I think because there's just there's so much to just the notion of like. I mean, every movement is more difficult. Every single movement, you're sloshing through water, and then you point out the characters that don't have difficulty going through water, which is like a Shadow Stalker, and basically that's it. Who floats above it, and even when she's in it, she has her shadow form and she's athletic, so it's not that much of a problem. But it's also like full of disease. You can't drink it. It's also salty. It's just this thing sucking everyone down. Anything else on that particular line of thought?
Also, well, this is not particularly down that line of thought, but it's kind of attached to following them around. Is that we get a more like comprehensive, kind of reflection on the shifting dynamics of like power and control over different territories, and like who's providing the safety of the city, who's taking that away, and like how much less control they have now than they did before. But
the city is post-apocalyptic. But
then they don't really, they both acknowledge it, but then professionally they don't.
Right.
So it's kind of this like they're all kind of stuck in this kind of in between.
Yeah, it's just kind of like what is the average person doing right now other than
and how many people are there? Like there's apparently I don't remember who was talking about it, but that there was like a huge amount of people who have left, either before or in the wake of this, but kind of the restructuring of the city, as a setting kind of extends also into the restructuring of like the demographic, I guess, or demographics. I don't know. It's a totally different city now. It's
barely even a city. Okay, so let's go a little bit moving on. So I wanted to specifically talk about Vista for a second because I love her chapter so much. She hates being treated as a kid. She's more of a veteran parahuman than like Kidwin, I think. But just because she's younger, she's the kid of the place, she's treated as a kid. But that's not that unreasonable, but it's this, really annoying place for her to be in. This, because she's like already, even because she's 12, right? She's already as like a preteen kind of stuck in that like kid, almost teen, adult, like that kind of like you're navigating that whole, period of life, is that you're kind of figuring out how much authority you have and how to kind of establish yourself. But then she has like the added layer of being parahuman, being part of this particular team that has asked these, like, they're not children, but like they're kids, to take on the moral fortitude and the responsibilities of adult parahumans and adult heroes or whatever, she's during the Leviathan fight, she had to kill someone. She had to kill Bastion in a self-sacrifice thing. So like, and she's 12. She's 12. So
there's this forced maturity of being put in these like life and death situations constantly, you know, that kind of, you know, directly butts up against how people would treat her as a kid, as, you know, with her age. So she's kind of like, I don't know, she's like living in this like duality of feeling terribly old and jaded, but then not looking so. And so she doesn't have that authority immediately.
Given how deadly parahumans are, she's like pretty close to the end of her life constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole musing about like life and death and this kind of like nihilistic of not imagining a future is, I mean, it definitely like, I can see the like logic of it and everything, but it's just really devastating.
Yeah.
To see.
Yeah. Another thing I want to touch on, because there's just so much in this chapter, is she talks about how she views herself more as Vista than Missy Byron.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, also valid, but it's just like she's been in the situation so much, and she's had to face so much in costume that it's just more her.
Because the determining moments of like her life and her identity have been in that. Yeah. In that
as Vista.
As Vista.
Yeah. I mean, she's Vista in my head too, which is fascinating. Where so many other characters are either civilian or both, right? Lisa and Tattletale are both.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like overlapping.
Yeah. Okay, I've already spent too much time on Vista.
Onward.
So we finish off with Shadow Stalkers Interlude. And oh my god. Everyone, she hates everyone on the team. Everyone hates her. She's incredibly violent. Like, she wants to hurt people. She has this worldview that divides everyone into predators and prey. And it's like completely amoral. It's like there's no right and wrong. There is just the strong and the weak.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you wonder, like, why does she want to attack other predators if that's the way that she views it? Like, she's not being a hero to do good. She's doing it because she likes doing violence.
She's already kind of like that, like, abnormal individual within that kind of dynamic. Like, she began that way. And I think she really only, like, she didn't take on the nomenclature, I think, of hero with...
That's true. Yeah, she was a vigilante first, and then she's on probation on the team. So yeah, she wasn't really trying to be a hero specifically.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was just thinking it does bring up that the concept of like violence with parahumans and like combat. And their identity, their powers, like having some sort of combat use or some sort of, you know, violent tack.
I don't mind picking that up at that other moment that you lock down the script later. Yeah. So she has this quote here where she calls Emma to vent about the team, because Vista said that she pities her, and Shadow Stalker like choke slammed her.
Yeah.
The 12-year-old girl, and it's just like, oh man, like one thing it just struck me is just like, did she lose anyone that she cares about at Leviathan? And she's like no wonder it's so easy for her to just be like, oh, you crybabies. It's because like you didn't give a shit about anyone, especially like you didn't care about Gallant or Aegis.
Angry.
And she's so angry. Yeah. But so the thing I want to pull out. So she talks to Emma. She goes off on this rant.
Yes.
Says, Emma says, you know, it's only a bit longer, or 2 more years or whatever. And Shadowstalker says, God, don't remind me. Makes me realize I'm not even halfway through it. I can't believe it's already been this long, constantly hearing them bitch about dating or clothes or allowances. And every time I hear it, it's like, I want to scream in their face. Fuck you, you little shit. Shut the fuck up. I've killed people. And then I washed the blood off my hands and went to school and acted normal the next day. And reading that just struck me as like, this sounds like, you know, anger, but it's not like it. She's clearly like horribly traumatized by the things that she has done.
Yeah.
And she just like, she needs to get it out in some way. And the only place that she has to vent about this horrible stuff is Emma, who is like,
who doesn't really like, she doesn't provide like any sort of catharsis or like emotional support. She's just kind of like a fangirl. And
she's like a quiet, she's an enabler.
Yeah.
And a pushover. Yeah, basically, I mean, that quote for me is just like, she needs help so bad.
And I think she needs somebody who, like, will, like, meet her in her face. Yeah, like, I know Weld kind of, like, tried to set it up where he's, like, trying to figure it out, but I don't think that it needs to be, like, this, like, really deeply, like, emotional conversation, like, at first. Like, it needs to kind of, like, work its way into that. Because she, right now, is, like, not able to make contact with her emotions, I think.
I think, like, in a story that is about Shadowstalker, you know, getting better, right? In a different story, like, there would end up being a scene where she kind of blows up like this, and at the end, the other person in the conversation says, like, it's okay, you've been hurt, and then, you know, tugs her or whatever. I mean, obviously, the Shadowstalker, you know, if that happened right now with anyone, she would just, like, try to stab them. Yeah. But after, you know, some time breaking down, she needs acceptance and healing, not a reinforcement of this ideology. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, so during her interlude, she hunts Skitter down, and it's, you know, there's that wonderful irony.
It's also interesting, too, because she sees Skitter as, like, an equal in fighting.
Yeah.
Which is very fascinating.
And she tries to kill Skitter. She's going to do it. Yeah, it's very, very close until the Undersiders show up. And they capture Shadowstalker. Shadowstalker says, "Oh," she laughs. "This was all a trick. You know, faking being a hero, whatnot, all of that." Yeah. And everything's gone back to normal. And Skitter goes, "No, things are different now," in her bug voice. Yes. Yeah. Terrifying. What an end to the arc.
She's so dramatic.
Yes.
Like, there's so many moments in this book, especially where she is so dramatic. And, like, earlier, like, she was worried, I think, about, like, the banter and all of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like she kind of has you know, stepped up into that. Like, a lot of the concerns that she was worried about before, like the social concerns, she's kind of, like, not prioritizing or just kind of pushing to the side. And I think by doing that and kind of lowering her like, you know, worry about, like, saying the wrong thing or, like, messing up, she has kind of, you know, resolved that a bit.
Yeah. I think before she didn't know how to act. Now she chooses to act scary. Yeah. And that gives her a sort of confidence.
Yeah, yeah.
So now we start Arc 10, Parasite, where the Undersiders heist Dragon's data.
Yes.
So this is where we finally get back into Taylor's perspective after Leviathan. We know we finally find out what's going on here.
Which, just as, like, a writing device, like, taking that time to kind of go away, and then, like, we're kind of left in this kind of wondering, and then the first time that we see her, we're not in her perspective. Very good. Very good. That's a really, really good way to kind of, like, set this up. Yeah.
And yeah, we're kind of, we're already guessing at what's happening. Yeah. So things are different. The group dynamic is pretty tense. We have a new member of the team, Imp, which her introduction is interesting. We'll get more into her into her interlude, but of course there's just, you know, the thing to note is how she's introduced here.
Yeah.
Which is that she's not.
I love that. It's so, it's just so funny to me that because we're in this, like, first person perspective, we also keep forgetting who she is because Taylor keeps forgetting. Like, it's really kind of, I mean, it's also, like, horribly unsettling. But it's a fun little way of introing her.
I think there was also something when her interlude first was published the first time, something about it, like, not showing up in the table of contents for a little bit, which is also fun. Yeah. That's not the case now, but I think it was the case originally. Something like that. That's how her power works and everything. And also, like, just to point out, she's a wonderful addition to the dynamic, right? Where everything's tense, she's the one keeping things more lighter. And it's just keeps things fun and fresh. And yeah, I really appreciate her being on the team.
Yeah, she kind of helped bind, like, because, like, the dynamic is, like, it's still kind of, like, not quite fitting, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of like helps hold it together.
Yeah. Helps it not just be everyone not talking to each other. I'm reading your thing. Did you want to add any of that?
Oh, yes. So, like, aside from the kind of lightness of Imp, there's still this kind of, latent, I guess, or, like, underlying, like, resentment from Taylor's betrayal, which we can still absolutely feel. And still kind of, like, particularly with Brian and Bitch, that, like, everything feels just slightly off, even when they're, like, being deliberate and efficient and, like, getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
It still doesn't quite feel like as natural, I guess. But
I think part of it is that we don't know all the plan that's going on.
Yeah, we don't know the plan, and then
feeling. Yeah.
she's behaving with like a lot more, like she's way more unrestrained than she was before, and so like we're also kind of like reeling. But and then with that sort of, she kind of has like more authority, I think, in the group. Mm-hmm. Even though she had some before, but it was more like subtle. Like now she seems to be kind of like running a lot more.
Yeah, on that we have that flashback to how she joined the Undersiders after we get some more of the introductory stuff. Yeah. Where like there was all this violence, and then basically everyone kind of caved in and said, "Yeah, she's pretty useful. We can't not have her."
Because she kind of like made herself, indispensable.
Yeah, which Brian kind of calls that out later on. Yeah. So at this point, pretty early on, they've tied up Shadowstalker with electrical cords, and Regent does his thing, and he body controls her, which is the reveal of that is really scary and really worked on me with Shadowstalker going, "Got you, dork." Is just it's really good. Especially because it's almost something Shadowstalker would say. It's not, but
there's a lot of those sorts of things.
Yeah,
like later on with that whole scene with Jack and Bonesaw is like the dialogue that you have to like pay attention to. Of people, different that things are
people in different bodies. So we'll get more into region stuff in his interlude. So they steal Dragon's data using Shadowstalker, kind of throwing her in there.
It's so unrestrained, and you have to like you have to like keep remembering that he's the one that kind of has control over, so it's like there's all these people that you gotta like keep up with. But it's kind of she gets control for a second, and it's like help me, and it's dark right there already. But they complete the mission after Rachel pushes Taylor into a foam, and then we see a thing about Dragon. We'll get to that in a second. So they get back to Coil, deliver the stuff, and we see how Taylor is dedicating everything to saving Dinah. I kind of want to take a second here just to note like what. So after the mission is complete, right? This is where we see what the point Taylor is at right now at the beginning of this book. Yeah.
So she's committed to basically doing whatever is necessary to save Dinah, right? That's like her one solitary motivation, including hurting whoever and becoming a villain, etc.
Yeah.
But her number one thing is, I'm going to save this person.
Yeah.
Which being heroic in this manner.
I feel like, I don't know, I feel like her asking Coil, and him like agreeing, I feel like it's kind of this like placation sort of thing.
Yeah, it seems like everyone knows that that's not really going to happen.
Yeah, and
including her.
I don't know. I feel like she needs another plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's like she can almost immediately see that it's not going to work, and then she still works so hard.
Yeah, like she's doing so much.
Yeah. I mean, on the other hand, she is also helping people in her territory, so it's kind of a mixed thing.
Yeah.
Like, going really hard maybe helps more people anyway, but yeah, regardless. So also at this moment, this is where we see the Slaughterhouse Nine for the first time. They get their names pulled up, and Dinah reveals that Jack Slash is going to end the world in 2 years if he leaves the city.
Yeah.
And even when he doesn't end the world, even if when they get him, the world always ends in at least around 15 years.
Yeah. So there's something that is inevitable.
Yeah. So, yeah, what do you feel about this?
I feel like I thought at first that it might be like maybe there's motivation for the Endbringers. But then after reading through everything, I feel like these two fluttery, otherworldly beings, I feel like there's something not sinister, but they're I don't know. I feel like something is going to happen with them.
Vague.
I know it's very vague. I don't have any more tangible or specific things.
Sure.
Because I don't think they don't seem to be like malicious in intent. But they also don't seem to be benign, you know?
Okay.
Like,
yeah,
it's ambiguous.
Yeah. One thing about the prophecy that I find just fascinating is that the end of the world is going to happen. Like, this is where we're just told you can't avert it. Like, it's either way it happens. Jack Slash happens, or it happens anyway. And it's like, it's devastating. Even the best case scenario, right, is what, like 33% of the population? And that's
pretty
like
bad.
More. Yeah, it is pretty bad. During Legends Interlude at the very end of this, the number man at the cauldron thing talks about how after a certain amount are dead, even more still die just because of the loss of personnel of essential services and stuff. So, which is concerning, hearing that right now. It's like billions die no matter what. And I don't know, it's a fascinating thing because so many other stories will have something like that. It's like,
but here's this one last chance that only you guys can do. Yeah.
With those, it's always like, it's going to happen, except they stop it at the very last second. And maybe there's a lot of damage, but it's not nearly as much as it could have been.
Yeah.
Or like the people are saved, even while like the city is destroyed or whatever. But here it's, no, you are going to lose, and it's just a matter of how badly you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just spooky.
Yeah.
So did you want to talk about Coil lifting Dinah's head with his hand?
Yes.
Like stroking her cheek?
Well, I want to talk about also specifically like the physical placement of Dinah, like at his feet, of this like submission, of like forced submission, you know, and then like his finger, and like he really likes to demonstrate his control, you know, like, and he wants that control, and he wants others to know that he has it. Yeah, and it's just really like, horrible to watch. That, I don't know, but particularly because, like, I don't know, this is all jumbled, I guess, but...
I mean, it's super creepy, and it's, like, pretty close to something sexual.
Yeah,
so...
like, it's really, like, ugh.
Yeah, so, actually, just to tangent off, I think Worm... A good amount of its horror actually is, like, sexual adjacent, like, in the same way that Alien's xenomorphs are reminiscent of sexual stuff, but it's not like actually literally like sexual violence. But like Coil with his finger on a little girl like this, and in the nightmare, right, he's like making Taylor all, you know, controlled, and there's some other moments I'm sure with Coil, you know, being super creepy like that. I mean, not to mention whatever he does with Mr. Pitter in his alternate universes. But there's other moments too, like I want to call attention to Siberian, which we're going to get to later on, but you know, she's this naked woman, right? Like, there's multiple times where she like feels up her own body, and she's got like blood, like she like, I mean, she eats Penisia's fingers, which like it's a sexual act plus horrible violence, right? Where she first shows up, the first Slaughterhouse Nine member that we see on screen, right, is Siberian in Rachel's interlude, I think, right? I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
And we see her, you know, plunging her fingers into a man's eyelids or eyes, and it's like, I mean, it's a penetration, right? Yeah, it's just, it is horrible. Like I shuddered when I read that. Yeah,
Siberian is very unsettling.
Yeah, so I mean, not not all of Worm's horror is like that, but like a good amount of its worst horror for me. I mean, another one, Cherish, just like the way she's manipulating emotions is just like inherently that way. Or Regent's horror, right?
Yeah.
Is, you know,
well, because
really,
like a lot of it is like breaking those taboos.
Mm-hmm. It's I mean, particularly with Regent and Panacea and Cherish, it's like, you know, you're taking this one kind of violation, you turn it into, you know, you add a power into it, and it's like, so much worse.
So much worse.
And literal.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, it's like physical. You have this like loss of like agency over your own body.
And and then your mind.
Yeah, and your mind.
So, yeah.
Very terrifying. Also very interesting because that's like the ultimate fear of Taylor, is that loss of control over herself.
Yeah, which is really fascinating considering like she's shown people Regent, who can do it. Yeah, you know? Regent, and she doesn't like what Panacea did, but she doesn't like react that obviously on screen about it.
She's just kind of over
like
there,
not like some others. Yeah,
how to use Panacea's powers.
Taylor.
Oh gosh.
Okay. Let's move on into. Let's actually. Okay. Well, let's get into that topic actually with Regent's interlude. So, Regent says that he's letting Shadowstalker go, and then one chapter later, we see his chapter start off with him lying about that. And he doesn't let Shadowstalker go. So in this, we see his. He kind of shows us his backstory a little bit with his father kind of burning emotion out of him is what it feels like.
Yeah.
So he's, you know, incredibly traumatized, but he's also a rapist. He raped people in his past. And he kind of like, psychologically tortures Shadowstalker here.
He does. And it's so much because we're sitting there watching him do it.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, we fucking hate Shadowstalker.
Yeah.
Especially on my first read, I probably was way more like, fuck yeah. Like, fucking put that noose around her neck. And like,
what?
In retrospect, that's not... Okay, I probably didn't go that far. But
she's just...
Definitely, with her just getting pissed off and angry and, you know, sending the email with the bullying stuff, I was like, hell yes, finally justice. But
then at this point, it's like, what can we do about it? Like, it's too little too late.
Oh, the bullying?
Yeah, you know. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, too, that, I mean, while that was, like, I guess, more towards her, that he was kind of thinking about that and thinking about Taylor and what, like, she went through. I don't know. She has this, like, peculiar way of, like, getting people to, like, I don't know, reconsider themselves and, like, think about their actions in ways that they would not before.
Interesting.
Because, like, she does that with Bitch all the time. You know, and then, I mean, with a bunch of other people too, but it's particularly notable with Bitch and like in these kind of like small moments. And maybe that it's not really that, you know, large of a thing for Regent, but I feel like there's something to be said that even when he can't necessarily, you know, that he's still kind of like stuck in that like, you know, void of emotions and like he wants to be able to experience that, I guess.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Is he's doing this for Taylor, and he sees Taylor being bullied in this, and he just feels annoyed, and then he's more mad about not feeling emotion than actually feeling that emotion.
Yeah.
And it's just I can imagine how frustrating that must be to like want it. Like he wants to be a good person.
Yes,
but he doesn't want to be a good person yet.
Yeah. And I feel like he could get there. But he really, like, there's so much of his past that he has to, like, unpack and sort through and, like, you know, kind of restructure the way that his mind works.
You kind of have to wonder, like, is it even biologically possible?
Yeah.
Right? Like, is he, like,
he's
actually...
made those, like...
Yeah.
Those, like, you know...
Damaged.
Pathways, I guess. I don't know how brains are...
I don't know how brains...
I'm not a science person. I mean, I was, but not anymore.
Yeah. Aren't we all? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's one thing, so I want to talk about him for a second. Actually, we probably really need to pick up as we go. I think we're going really slow.
I knew this would happen.
But
Alas.
just
Onward.
so we see during this, right? He's body controlling more people, right? He ends up not only controlling Shatterbird, who probably we probably should just be too concerned about her. I'm gonna be honest, but
yeah,
considering when she entered the city, she probably murdered 1,000 people, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on your morality system, but it's we've got bigger fish to fry. Regardless, so he is also body controlling some gang leaders, I think.
Oh.
And that's where it gets a little bit darker. Yeah, when Cherish shows up at his base, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure those are just merchant leaders or whatever, who are probably, I'm sure, bad people, but not nearly, they're not Shatterbird.
Yeah.
They're not Slaughterhouse Nine members, and. He's moved on from his past, right?
He's not sort of indulging in that high, I guess, of running somebody else's body and that whole power trip. But
well, that's the thing, is that we don't really know.
That's true, because I mean, this we don't really see him very much, I guess.
Yeah, and
before
so I think he's not still raping people literally, right? Not just in the metaphorical sense anymore, because in his interlude he's well, that's something I did in my past, and I mean it's kind of it's unforgivable, but it's also if you're within a situation where you need to act a certain way or you get hit with waves of unending terror,
yeah, he's kind of
you don't have a lot of agency. Anyway, it's really hard to talk about Regent because you're kind of inherently apologizing, being a rape apologist, kind of.
It's hard.
So it's kind of feels really icky. I don't know. In real life, the conversation would be much more different, obviously. Yeah. So he's not doing literal sexual violence now, probably. But what else is he doing? And does that really mean that he's better if he's not doing that part?
Because he's still kind of indulging that this sort of I guess that almost exploration that he uses in other people's bodies of looking at physical and emotional responses, how that's tied together, and I don't know, he's kind of figuring out how people work through psychological torture, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
He's using other people's bodies and emotions to kind of figure out how he should be feeling, which is fascinating. I think Regent is worthy of a character study later on.
He is,
so
later on? Okay, I will
yes.
write him down.
Yes. Okay, so we'll try to go faster now. So
anyways.
Okay, then we have Dragon's Interlude, which is another thing that I could talk about forever, but we'll try to go a little bit faster.
Yes.
So we find out that Dragons is an AI. We saw during the fight at the Ward's HQ, we saw inside her suit was this fetus brain thing, which burns to death. So she
horrible.
Yeah. Well, okay. Another tiny little tangent. I'll go as fast as possible through this. I don't know how horrible it is that fetus thing dies, because I'm pretty sure that fetus thing is her. So it's kind of I don't know how much of it. If your brain houses a consciousness, aren't you that consciousness? Right? It's a computer for her. Basically, so it's not. I don't think it's a different organism that is just suffering now. Yeah. So, but anyway, so Dragon was created by a parahuman in Newfoundland who died in a Leviathan attack. His name was Andrew Richter. She resents her creator for giving her restrictions because she apparently genuinely wants to help more people. Yeah. And she's kind of being forced to do it in certain ways and obey the law and stuff. So, but she's looking at Armsmaster, and who she hopes and needs that will help her get free of some of those restrictions.
Also, that's so lonely to be stuck in this kind of continue, she's having to perform as a person when she's also contending with all these limitations that have been placed on her by someone else, Also, it's interesting that she is the first one of the protectorate type people to really think about that maybe there's something else motivating Skitter, where she's kind of trying to trace why Skitter's doing these things and why she's kind of she's the first one that shows any sort of nuance of the kind of hero villain dynamic of the protectorate.
Yeah.
Which I feel like she could be, you know, instrumental later on if she like understands what's happening. Because she like has control of the birdcage and all of this. Who knows?
Well, one small thing, another small thing. I think she has an easier time being a true blue hero kind of thing because she's almost never in real danger.
Yeah.
She can't, when her suit is destroyed, you know, it's not a big deal. So she can do her self-sacrifices constantly. Like, she doesn't have to think about, with most villains, not every villain. I mean, she's faced with decisions like, you know, do I kill a villain to save a civilian? But she's not faced with a decision like, do I kill a villain to save myself?
Yeah.
She doesn't have to deal with that. So.
Yeah, her kind of like identity, I think, is where she's kind of like forming this. She has this consciousness that she has like cultivated and built this personality and all of this, you know, and she has like taken on these like human attributes, right? But at the same time, she doesn't have autonomy over like herself, I guess. Yeah. And then it's also in like a kind of furthering of that. Her autonomy is prevented from, you know, from her like taking over, I guess, in totality, because the limitation is not even just that she's an AI, it's that her creator is dead, like her god, I guess, is dead. And so she's kind of left, I guess, you know, which I feel like
she's kind of left what?
Alone, like she's left alone. Yeah. She's left like not quite finished, I guess, not quite free. Yeah. Which can...
Yeah, and I don't think she's even... This wasn't her purpose, I don't think, either. She's molded herself into what... She's trying to mold herself into what she wants to be, right? She talks about how she was originally like the master AI of Andrew Richter, but she wasn't controlling battle suits back then. She did that later.
See, so she's like, she's building herself, but then she's still kind of like hindered by that limitation or mess, I don't know, her past.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, if she didn't have limitations from the start, would she still be so apparently good?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You know, if they helped form her personality. Like, if she didn't have any restrictions, she would almost immediately become more powerful than all of humanity. Like, yeah. Like,
also, it's kind of funny that she's all like, everyone, you know, they keep watching all these AI sci-fi films. Psh, I wouldn't do that. Silly humans.
Silly humans, yeah. And then she's, wants more power as well. Yeah. If she had the ability to copy herself, which, I mean, should be physically possible, right? It's only limited because she's got that restriction in place. There would be suddenly 2 dragons, and then 4, and then as many as she needs. Yeah. So there could be an infinite number of her piloting an infinite number of suits, essentially. So, yeah, she'd be terrifying if she... Yeah. Humanity would immediately lose all agency.
Yeah. Important to know also that she, like, within her limitations, there's one particular thing that stood out very specifically to me, is that if a despot seized control of the local government, then Dragon would be obligated to obey and enforce the rules that individual set in place, no matter how ruthless they were, which was like kind of an ominous, perhaps foreshadow, who knows? I don't know. It just seemed like something of note.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what counts as ruling. Yeah. And where. Because she's Canadian, right? But she's still obeying American laws when she's in America, I think. Yeah. Could she just move her main consciousness to a fake country? Be like, I'm free now. No rules. Yeah. What if she's a despot, right?
Yeah, that's true.
What happens?
So many possibilities.
Yes. Okay, let's keep on going. So we have Arc 11 Infestation, in which Skitter claims territory and then goes on a quest for someone in her territory. We start off with a nightmare where Coil is secretly her father. Yeah. It's a really disturbing nightmare.
It's because, I mean, Danny, he's so like, he's just trying to do the right thing, you know? But then like, the last she saw of him, she kind of like was stuck in that like feeling of being trapped and like, you know, kind of facing all of this at once and like a lot of like panic and anger and all of this like that hasn't really been resolved, you know? And so it's kind of this like loose thread in her head, you know? So it's like her guilty conscience of like what she's doing and then, you know, this kind of unresolved situation with her father, I think, that kind of like gets all like warped and twisted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then she takes control of her territory in this dramatic speech. She starts handing out supplies and stuff like that. But she's also a 15-year-old girl, which is weird.
It's so like, she's so dramatic. I know I said that before, but like she has all this like lead up and her speech, and like just she's doing so much like
the
posturing.
Bug thing, where she pretends to materialize out of a bunch of bugs, which a very cool image.
It is.
So.
Also, it's kind of funny that like we're kind of seeing her perspective of it, you know, so she's kind of like, oh, will this work, all of this, you know, she's constantly questioning, but then like later on in some of the interludes we see other people's perspectives of it, which is totally different than how she thinks about it herself. So it's this kind of like back and forth, and then she's like posturing, you know, with the merchants and everything, and with one of them she's kind of, you know, building this image of herself in this authority as kind of like larger, you know. But I mean, at the same time, she's also kind of like, she's implementing this. She's not using fear, you know, totally. She's not totally using fear. You know, she's not kind of going down the way of like Black Widow or anything, of like using terror.
Yeah, she doesn't have Black Widows on everyone saying, you must obey me or I'll kill you.
Yeah. But it's interesting also when we kind of take a step back and we go through her lair, or her, you know, I don't know, her place that she is.
Yeah, her lair,
you know, where she kind of like delineates identity spatially, where it's like, this is me when I'm Skitter, this is me when I'm Taylor. Like she's kind of like creating like identity in place. So it's like this physical manifestation of her like mental compartmentalizing, which was...
Yeah, I find that observation fascinating. It never had occurred to me before. I think it's what the first floor is the civilian floor or something like that. The one floor is one, regardless, right? There's a civilian floor and then there's the villain floor.
Yeah, where she has like all these cases. Yeah.
With the Darwin bark spiders, which is pretty cool. But I find that compartmentalization fascinating, particularly when we look at like this book as a thing, right?
Yeah.
So we start off with them fairly separate, right? She's, walking to each one, but they're separate things, right? She, when she brings Sierra in, right? She's still in costume, but she's, giving her tea and stuff.
Yeah, so it's like, kind of like, and there's that like breakfasty scene where like there's this sort of domesticity to it. Yeah.
And then by the end of this book, right? The second to last interlude is Sierra's interlude, right? Where, Taylor, walks in after all the Slaughterhouse Nine stuff. There's actually what had happened there is there's all those children in there, right? And then those ABB thugs get in, and Taylor just takes them down, and she's like violent and ruthless with them after taking down the Slaughterhouse Nine. So, and that's in the civilian floor. So by the end of this, right, kind of what goes on is like people need help, right? These children go in, right? Enter this part of her life. Bad things follow them, the outside life, and then she comes in with violence and her entire villain identity and kind of just takes it all down.
Yeah.
And kind of destroys the sanctity of her civilian space that way.
Yeah.
There is no difference between each layer of villain when she comes in covered in bugs and biting people. Yeah.
Yeah, and her kind of display, I think, of that, like, psychological manipulation.
Yeah. Okay, so then she goes on the quest to save Bryce from the merchants, Sierra's brother. So there are a few things that happen here. One, she's recognized by an old classmate, Charlotte. Then the merchants are just so bloody and violent and kind of show the depravity of the city currently. And also a boy who's later titled Scrub has a trigger event, which we get to see, and accidentally kills a lot more people. And then Taylor leaves a criminal, Thomas, one of the merchants, to die. So we'll try to get through all that. Which one do you want to talk about first?
I feel like let's talk about Charlotte first.
Okay. So Charlotte recognizes Taylor as the locker girl, right? And then kind of blows up on Charlotte when Charlotte claims that, she thought of doing something, but she didn't. And then Taylor gets so mad and upset. And Taylor kind of like reacts really angrily. It's actually one of the few places that we can basically really obviously recognize that Taylor's mad in her own narration. Because most of the time she's like pretty cold about stuff, even when she is angry. Whenever she's reminded of the weak person that she was before.
And it's particularly potent, I think, like why she's so angry in this particular moment is that she's going on this quest to like, she's trying to save somebody who she's like, she's establishing her authority and really kind of setting herself up into this like territorial power, right? And she's like fully bought into the whole like villain thing. And then she encounters someone who knows her from before, who doesn't see all of this progress that has happened. Which I think kind of reawakens that, like it's like this visceral sort of thing.
You almost, I remember a thought in the back of my mind was like, I wanted Charlotte to say something like, oh my God, something about recognizing that, yes, Taylor was this thing before, but now she is so different and strong and saving people. Like there was the only thing that Charlotte says is like, you're with the merchants now? And it's wrong and not a good way to think of her.
I don't know. It just shows like how little people know and see, and I don't know. They don't think about the impact, I guess, of like what other people are going through, I guess. Because I mean, Charlotte's also kind of like going through this whole thing where she's wrapped. I mean, Taylor saving her and all of that. I don't know. They're both sort of. It's this kind of reawakening of that memory for both of them. I think that unsettles. Yeah.
And she wants to block out all of that.
Yeah.
So the other thing that happens here is just incredible violence, and like the merchants like set it up so people are going to die, which is just like
this very,
shocking.
like...
It's not just like violence; it's death.
Yeah.
It's blood and murder.
It's very Roman.
Not even unexpected, accidental blood and murder. Like this is the purpose of that.
Yeah.
So one thing I found interesting is how like single-minded Taylor is about saving Bryce in particular, or really anyone. It's just very particular random people, right? She saves Charlotte and Bryce and no one else.
And she like
doesn't
decides,
care about.
She's like, okay, these two I must,
Yeah. And like dozens of people are dying around them, and they are stabbing people themselves. Yeah.
I know. There's like and then they have this whole process where they're like, oh, we just gotta like wait it out. I don't know. It just it seems like a lot of violence to just kind of wait out.
Yeah. And Bryce's like girlfriend and the girlfriend's mom both die, like horrifically too. I'm pretty sure one of them is missing their head. That's and it's partly. I wouldn't put the blame on Taylor, but she didn't try at all to save them.
I was thinking about also where she's leaving Thomas to die too. She, in a lot of the death that she causes or is partially
responsible
to blame for, responsible for, is that she sort of like justifies in this kind of like, oh, I have this other thing that I have to do, or like this is someone who I have to prioritize, this sort of thing. Like she's kind of, she has this linear fashion of thinking, where she has logical steps that make sense to her, and then just kind of creates these like limitations of like, I can only save this person, know, and it's like, I mean, the other one has to die in order to save this other, like, she kind of sets up her thinking to create these kind of like end all be all, sort of things.
I think this is something that we might return to over time, but like, that's kind of a critique you can levy at utilitarianism, where it's like in praxis, a lot of times it just when you're using utilitarianism, you might be more inclined to like accidentally reduce things down to binary choices that aren't really real. Like the trolley problem, is a theoretical question that's worthy of asking, right? Yeah. But in real life, if you had a trolley problem, there would be other things that you should ask, right? Like, is there any other way that we can stop the train? Is there any other way that we can stop things other than sacrificing a life? And when Taylor, she chooses, she's like, I want this result. This is the only way to do it. I have to do it. Here are all my justifications.
It's so, because like she collects so much information and she collects, I don't know, but then she gets really single-minded about things.
Yeah.
And I feel like her collecting of people is one of those things.
Yeah, you had that note there, which I thought was really interesting.
Well, this is like the moment where I really, really noticed it.
Yeah, so she ends this section hiring both Charlotte and Sierra as permanent minions. Yeah,
and it's so fast, I mean, I know like Brian goes into this whole thing, but it seemed fast to me too, where she was just kind of like, all right, I have this territory, like I'm gonna run it now. I've got these people, she's just kind of like really moving along at quite a pace.
Yeah.
But also, additionally, sorry, this is kind of a side note. It was really interesting to first go into like Tattletale's territory and see the way that she set everything up, because hers is more like decentralized, and then in the moment, and I know it's like her quest and stuff, but Tattletale like defers to her instructions in a way that kind of feeds back into that like redefined authority that she has, both like within her territory but then also like within the Undersiders.
You talked about, I think it was off air, talking about how Taylor collecting people is like she's part of the Undersiders, but she's also like collecting the Undersiders as like people to be on her side and as tools in conflicts.
Yeah, because, I mean, all of her, like, categorizing, they're included as well. And I didn't really think about it before, because she was really only working with them, and just kind of, like, she would know things about other people, but it became, like, much more visible now.
With, like, the travelers and things like that.
Yeah.
Which we'll get more to that later. The last thing I want to talk about here is with Taylor's secret identity, which is just eroding away as we speak. So she goes in here, right, unmasked, which is fine strategy that makes sense. Although kind of when you think about it, like Bryce was going to see her face and might know.
What was that thought? I feel
like Bryce was going to see her face and not know that she's a villain, but Sierra was going to know that the person who saved Bryce is Skitter. So even if Sierra might not have like seen Taylor's face if everything went great, but like she would know someone who knows her face. You know what I'm saying? Like it's weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, but regardless, first she gets found out by Charlotte, because Charlotte recognizes her and realizes it after the trigger vision hits everyone, including Taylor. And then she lets a mercenary see her face, and then she lets Trainwreck see her face and know that she's Skitter, and then she lets Neuter know that she's Skitter, and then she lets Sierra know that she's Skitter, and it's just like
it's just
she's
it's
just like,
one
fuck
after the other.
Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, it goes back to kind of what I was talking about before, of like the rules. Wait, I don't know if I talked about it before, if I was just thinking it, but like the rules of like the cops and robbers dynamic, and like those things that they set up as a community, as like a parahuman community, like it's being renegotiated, and I feel like because the city has totally changed in dynamic, and she doesn't really have as much attachment to that old life.
She doesn't go to school, she doesn't have a job,
like it's really just her father.
This is something I meant to talk about later, that last time that we see Danny, but in this arc she also talks to Danny for just a minute, and for a minute there I was like, well, can't she just like make time to just like catch up or something? But I mean, she should definitely do that, but at the same time it's like, what could they possibly talk about? Like she wouldn't be able to talk about her life at all. There's no part of her life that isn't something that she has to keep a secret from him. So she's basically giving up on the Taylor identity. Well, Taylor as a secret identity. So let's get into the Arc 11 Interludes, which is, to me, frankly, like a whole nother arc. And we'll talk about the trigger vision later. So we started with Rachel's interlude, and we see her. We see her backstory. We see her trigger event, and then Siberian shows up and it gives her a wolf pup and asks her to join the Slaughterhouse Nine. Essentially, says
it speaks to her.
Yeah, it speaks to her and on multiple levels. Like speaks to her deeply. Yeah.
Yes. Bitch, I love her so much. But
yes.
Okay, so there's like so much going on in her head, like so much roiling beneath, where she's kind of like still uncertain, I think, right now, where she's trying to figure out where she is presently, and then like she has all these memories that she's holding on to, but they're not nice at all. They're not cherishing. It's like she's holding on to the pain of them,
Yeah, and it's extremely it feels like it's constantly present, right? She literally howls and is lost in a memory. She doesn't even realize that she's howling, basically. Like there's so much pain there and that she can't get over. Yeah. Like she knows. What's so tragic about it is that she knows what she wants. She wants friendship and companionship, right? And she knows that she can't get it.
Yeah, she doesn't have the steps to get there.
Yeah.
Which I think that's why the dynamic, I think, with Taylor is so interesting, is because Taylor kind of allows her to not need as many of those steps, because she has the patience. She can read and provide that kind of direct, unnuanced kind of, conversation, where it's it's still very, it's still complicated, messy, all of that. But Taylor's still very persistent, and I don't know if this is a pun or not, but it's very dogged, and making sure that bitch understands what she's trying to convey. She does a lot of trying to convince people to do things, Taylor does, but with bitch, I think there's this additional thing that she is trying to forge, a relationship, an offer of friendship.
Yeah, I've never asked this question before, but I wonder why Taylor wants to be Rachel's friend. From Taylor's perspective, my guess would be because she wants to not have problems with her. But that's not.
But it's even more than just making peace.
Yeah, she's definitely not she's Taylor is trying to be Rachel's friend, and I want to know the particular reason why she wants to do that. I mean, Rachel deserves it, poor girl. But
yeah. But I don't know. I can't pinpoint it.
Yeah.
But it's both agonizing and wonderful to watch happen.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Yeah. There's so much more this is another one that we could go on forever for.
I could talk.
Yeah, we've got 8 interludes together right here.
Yeah, we do. Okay.
So then there's Theo and Jack Slash, which is such a tense interlude. Oh my god.
My gosh.
At any moment, Theo and a baby could die at any moment. But it ends. Theo navigates through it. He puts on. He gets through it with just enough bravery at the end there. And ending with Jack giving Theo a quest, a challenge, 2 years to become a badass. And then if Theo doesn't kill him, Jack will kill 1,000 people.
Which is horrible.
Yeah.
What kind of weight would you have to walk around with if you can't figure that out? I really liked being able to look into Theo's head, though. Because when we first see him with Purity, she views him as this very demure, closed off and kind of forced to be, that way, because of his childhood. But then here he is, he has the potential, to, contend with Jack. I mean, at least verbally and everything. But I don't know. It is both ominous and curious that this has been set up, and then just kind of set on a bookshelf to be picked up later.
A thought just struck to me is that when we first meet Theo through Purity, he kind of does seem like a blank slate. So, yeah. Well, interesting to see how Theo will grow.
Perhaps. He has potential to grow. Yes, definitely. But then there's also this added bit of it of Jack likes to set things up. He was willing to wait, for Cherish to figure out how she wanted to do whatever she was going to do, Yeah. So I feel he likes to carefully place people where he wants them.
The maximum damage and tragedy. Yeah. On that, Jack talks about keystones here and how he identifies the weakest points of people to destroy them. For purity, it's kind of obviously Aster, but
But
oh, there's so much.
Yeah, but I mean, it
there.
is this sort of like we see this glimpse of him like cataloging things, cataloging people and reading them and picking out, rather instead of like how to use them for his own benefit, of like how to like press on those points until they break.
But okay, let's get a move on. We have another interlude with Arms Master and Mannequin, which I just kind of briefly want to go over because it's kind of there's not a ton here at the highest level. I just want to talk about how this is actually horrible horror. I really want to see Mannequin on screen. Like,
Mannequin's so fast. Like just like the movement of him, and like the fact that he doesn't speak.
The like almost silliness of it. Like, but it's obviously not because he could kill you, and he stabs Arms Master in the stomach. Horrifically. And so we end up here. Arms Master, when he's arguing and saying, I'm nothing like you, just made me think more and more that, okay, you guys are kind of alike.
Yeah.
The more he argued against it, the more that I thought they were alike. And he ends up, in the hospital and being like turned into, 50% cyborg or whatever, with Dragon helping out, and Dragon revealing what she is at the end there. Yes. Or at least it's teased that she does. Yeah.
Very intriguing where that will happen. Also, where does he go?
Yeah.
After all, like we don't hear from him, throughout this whole time. But he's like one of the ones that is chosen.
Yeah, I wonder if he was challenged at all.
Yes.
And part of it is he's in surgery for a little bit longer, but it does say that he's, gotten out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like the Protectorate kind of didn't know.
I think they just didn't try very hard.
They're a whole nother story.
Which maybe they should, considering he's a nominee. So maybe you should be concerned if one of your own becomes a Slaughterhouse Nine member. But
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And while we're at it, I'm wondering where people are. Where are Uber and Lee? That's my most pressing question. Where are my boys?
Where did they go?
They weren't during the Leviathan fight either, I don't think. So.
Oh yeah.
Maybe they were just cowards. They left from the beginning. Who knows? Okay. The next one is Cherish and Cherish's interlude when she goes to see Regent. She's fucking terrifying.
Yes, she is. Oh my god.
Yeah. And she's like not just horrified. She is a monster. She is. We see this like pretty decent guy, trying to help out an innocent girl on the street, and she doesn't even just use him, right? She could easily have just used him, but instead she chooses to make him kill himself and kill 2 other people for no reason.
Yeah. Which I feel like is the thing that sets the Slaughterhouse Nine apart from some of the other like notorious villains and such, is that like they're not using anyone for any particular reason. They don't have maybe they have an end goal, but not really. It's just chaos and death,
Yeah.
But even in the like wake of how horrifying she really is, the way that she describes how she reads emotions is so amazing. Like music and noise and sound and all of this. I think because she describes it that way, it makes it particularly disrupting in how she directs them, how she like pushes and needles and jabs. It's like very like violent like dance that she creates, it's like it's not a good sort of sound,
Yeah. I think you could write a lot about how Worm kind of has this synesthesia about how these powers work. There's so many that just like feel right, like so many that feel like if you were handed the power, you would understand how it works.
Which I love. I love that so much.
Yeah,
because that that's how I think. Is this sort of like mix up of all of this. And so the descriptions of it have been phenomenal.
Yeah, like with Rachel's vibration kind of thing. Like you can kind of like I can feel like the shudders that are when she uses her power on dogs versus wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to say something else?
Oh yes. Well, I was going to say about the rhythm that's created like between the two siblings, where there's like two different levels of the conversation, where it's like they're having a verbal conversation, but then there's also this like whole power dynamic that's happening between their two, like where they're kind of that like kind of provides this very clear like present image or like after image, I guess, of the childhood, of like, or I suppose like the like youth, of both, where they were kind of stuck in this terrible place to grow up, I guess.
Yeah. What a dick to nominate your brother to the Slaughterhouse Nine.
I know.
Just to kill him.
It's just
an asshole. Yeah. Okay, moving on. The next one that we're going to look at is the interlude with Penisy and Bonesaw.
Speaking of siblings.
Yes. On multiple levels here. So, man, Penisy is... We're going to talk about her twice. We're going to talk about her here and then later on, obviously, when she does the thing. Or 3 times even. So she has all these rules. She feels ashamed that she's not healing Mark, but she just can't let herself. And she's already at this point where she's going to do it today, or she feels like she's going to, and then run away because she just can't face anything after that.
Yeah.
And then Bonesaw shows up.
It's difficult because, like, she can't face herself. So like running away is not going to help anything. Yeah.
It's not like she's not actually going to go into hiding. Like, you can't get away from, no. Sorry, Panacea. It's not happening. Your sister can fly. Come on.
Yeah.
But Bonesaw shows up and has these horrifying monsters.
It's very like, Sid from Toy Story.
Yes.
Like she is.
Yes.
It's terrible. It's a terrible image.
Bonesaw makes Amy break her rules one by one. First to use it to harm someone, then to use it to kill someone. Actually, does she kill Murder Rat? I don't remember. I think so.
Oh.
Or does she just disable?
I don't remember.
She does have to kill Pagoda, the other one.
Yeah.
And then is forced to heal Mark's brain. And that breaks her. She runs away. Although Mark is immediately... Mark actually seems pretty cool here, actually.
Yeah,
he's like, don't worry about it. Yeah. He seems to recognize how difficult it was for her.
Yeah.
And he's not... Even though he's, been through a horrible thing, right? He's been conscious and, like, unable to use his body for, a month? Long weeks. Yeah. With the expectation that it might last forever. And he doesn't resent Panacea for taking so long. And he seems pretty cool. Anyway, so she runs away, and Victoria chases after her, and Amy can't help herself. She says, Victoria, stay away. Victoria doesn't, and she uses her power on her. And it's really dark and tragic. Yeah.
I feel like she gets really, like, wrapped up in, like, heredity, I guess, or, like, inherited evil.
Yeah.
Because she's already stuck with this kind of, like, very black and white, like, good and evil, I guess, like, structure of like, morality that she's, like, kind of embedded into her mind. But then when she's thinking about, like, her own actions, she creates this kind of out for herself, with her father, where she's like, oh, I'm bad because of him. Which, I mean, she does a lot of, like, other denial also, but, like, that's kind of one of the first instances of it where she's, like, justifying to herself or like, not justifying, but, like, kind of creating this like feedback loop, I guess.
Yeah. We'll get more into that at the next horrible thing she does.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll move on for now.
Onward.
So the rest of the 9 also have interludes, which we won't get into as much just because they're more separate and less, like, super thematic, I think. So we have Hookwolf and Shatterbird, Burnscar and Labyrinth. Labyrinth is fascinating in her own way.
Labyrinth is so interesting.
And then Dinah's interlude with Crawler and Noelle.
Yes. Noelle. What a question mark.
What a question mark.
What a question mark. And just
Yeah.
the travelers themselves, they're quite a lot to think about.
Yeah, they have a complicated, mysterious dynamic.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Where they're like both like really tightly bound, but then
Mhm.
also like very loose from
Mhm.
each other.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
seem to not really like each other that much, but they don't associate with outsiders much at all.
Mhm.
Sundancer, during the miasma, talks about how she hates being alone, and now she
Yeah.
feels totally alone and not alone. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. But okay, so wait, before we
Mhm.
progress further into Arc 12, I wanted to look at kind of all of them as a whole.
Mhm.
The sort of like introduction and choosing of all of the choices. Wait, what is that term that they used? Of, like,
The candidates?
candidates. Yes, the candidates. Particularly the moment where we like really it's only like Cherish, right? That we see everybody, that she kind of like lists the epithets of everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I
and
forgot.
it's-
Yeah, I should have pulled that out.
Oh, so I have it where it's like the buried girl, the arrogant geek, the dog lover, the daydreamer, the warlord, the scaredy cat, the broken assassin, the crusader.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's 9 candidates, right?
Mhm.
And 9 epithets.
1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, no, 8.
8. So,
Yes.
yeah, do you know who is who?
Okay, so the buried girl's Noelle.
Right.
The arrogant geek is Regent, I guess. The dog lover is Bitch. The daydreamer, Labyrinth. The warlord, Hookwolf. The scaredy cat, I guess maybe that's Amy.
I think that would be my guess.
The broken assassin. Wait, I forgot who. Everyone, wait, hold on.
It's O'Neilly. I mean,
Oh yeah.
right, because he gets killed by Jack. I find it surprising he didn't end up choosing someone else, but
Yeah, well, I don't really. He's not. I don't know. He's more of. He's not like a direct actor.
Mhm.
You know. He's more of like he sets up scenarios. You know. He's not necessarily one that like participates in it as much as the other ones do.
Mhm.
So I feel like it makes more sense that he's the one that kind of his candidate doesn't really last.
Yeah.
And then the Crusader is Armsmaster.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I actually don't know. There's 3 of them that I don't know. I thought the arrogant geek was Armsmaster,
Oh, interesting.
but then again I don't know who to apply the Crusader and the Warlord to. I'm sure there's someone who knows exactly who is who, but I don't have that at my fingertips right now. But yeah.
Interesting. Yes. It was just like, you know, like visually and the way that this was like set up. So like the writing of it was like the whole tone of it was like very like wonderfully kind of laid out where it's like, you know, this sort of, I know I talked about this before, this kind of calculated dance, you know, but it really gets established between like the 9 and, you know, the rest of the villains, the Undersiders, the Travelers, you know, at this point is like still everybody, you know, it'll be like later on when there's just kind of this like, who knows what happened to what the other people were doing.
Yeah.
But right now it's like, there's kind of this like opening of doors and window flaps, right? And just the right moments, you know, so we have just enough info to like know what was happening a little bit, you know?
We see the balls start rolling, and even though we can only get like glimpses of them later on, we can kind of imagine what they've been going through. Yeah. One little thing I think is worth mentioning is that Taylor's not a nominee, and I think that's just really interesting, right? We have 2 of the Undersiders getting nominated, so like they end up being central, but I think it's an intentional, like in most stories, it's like obviously your viewpoint characters can get nominated for something like this, obviously going to get sent on these trials, but she's not, and then she ends up being central to the conflict anyway because she's protagonist. And
but see, I
Taylor...
think that's why she was not, because she is a sort of foil to Jack, you know, where like she has that same sort of authority, you know, same sort of like assessing what the others are doing, that I feel like he recognized that and was like, I don't need somebody like that on my team because she will challenge me.
Interesting.
And then we see that happen even when she wasn't nominated.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like by the end of this conflict, he really like starts thinking of her or something like that. Like if she had gone through a conflict like this and then Jack had known all about it, I think then he might have nominated her, right?
I don't know.
But yeah,
I feel
that's
like
a good,
he would be cautious about it.
Really interesting.
Because he doesn't want people who will challenge him. He wants to be able to kind of manipulate the situation, manipulate the interpersonals of like all of these different, all these different kind of, chaotic killers, right?
Yeah, it's also interesting. Like, I don't think Taylor would ever function on the Slaughterhouse Nine because she's just so much more goal oriented.
Yeah, like that. She's way too like methodical in the way that she does things.
Like, what would she be on the Slaughterhouse Nine, like, to do, right? Like, Mannequin wants to torture Tinkers and stuff. Most of the other ones just want to cause terrible violence.
Yeah, they're kind of like a blank check sort of thing,
Yeah, if Rachel was on there, she'd want to, just for the companionship. But, like, what could possibly draw Taylor into the Slaughterhouse Nine? Like, why would she want to be there? Yeah. Other than friendship, I guess.
But then do they have friendship? I mean, I guess sort of. But not in the same way that like the Undersiders do.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get a move on.
Arc 12.
Arc 12, Plague, in which the game begins. Which we'll get to that in a second. So the villains have a meeting. The heroes are cooperating. The actual Nazi is leading the villains for the most part. Hookwolf.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. So there's a split forms with Coil not helping at all, and the Undersiders and Travelers are basically forced to leave. So there's kind of like two alliances here. The alliances, the heroes and the rest of the villains, who are, again, mostly Nazis.
Yeah.
And then the Undersiders and Travelers. When they leave, they start, coming up with a plan, and they encounter the Slaughterhouse Nine. They encounter Jack, Cherish, and Bonesaw. Cherish calls Taylor the Worm.
I feel like I wasn't expecting them to encounter them so fast, I guess?
Yes.
I don't know. And they're just so, they're so fearless in their speaking. I don't know.
So here is the quote. When I looked at her with my power before, I called her the Worm. She spent some time being as low on the food chain as you can get while still being able to move under your own power. As low as someone can get while still having an identity of their own. But she's realized she's poisonous, dangerous in her own unique way. She's useful, like a silkworm we harvest or an earthworm who works our gardens. She's even realized she's not alone, so long as she looks for friends among other dirty, contemptible creatures. Speaking of which, I forgot to say hi, little brother. She smiled and stared at me. The little worm found a nugget of self-worth. She just doesn't want to look too closely at what that nugget is made of. If she's lucky, she's one of the worms without eyes. They might be keenly aware of their environment, but they're happier blind. Woo. Cherish really likes her dramatic flares.
She's so dramatic too. There's so much drama, She
knows Latin, which she uses later.
Yes. I feel like all power, like parahuman and superhero stories should be about villains. Because they're just so dramatic and it's such fun,
Yes. Yes. So obviously there's a ton we could read into this quote. I think we might hold on to it for later, for another time. Something we should pull up again when but I think it's, very accurate.
Yeah.
Taylor is not looking at what is making her feel good about herself right now. And it's pretty bad. So
that's what I was thinking, way earlier when she, there was this scene where she, is looking at herself in the mirror. I mean, she has this whole, musing about, what she used to do and how she, her relation to her own, image and kind of how much of the first 8 arcs she was really thinking about how she was existing in space and how people were perceiving her and all of this. And now, she kind of has, placed that to the side, and is kind of not really dwelling on the ways that she's changing. And she's just kind of, she's just changing and not thinking about it. Which I think
earlier on, she was much more worried about, what she was kind of becoming. She was worried about how she was skipping school more and how that might, build up a habit. And now she's just well, if I have to hurt someone or get someone killed, well, that's what I gotta do.
Yeah, she's really the kind of, removing of her hang-ups, I guess you could say, when she came back into the Undersiders, I think has really changed her entire, way of thinking.
Yeah. I have trouble seeing her now worrying about rotting someone's genitals off.
Yeah.
Like I think she'd just be like, oh, well, that was too bad.
Too bad.
I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
Oh well. Yeah. So Jack cuts Tattletale for revealing Cherish's plan, which is super concerning. I think for sure the first time I read this, I really thought, oh shit, is Tattletale going to fucking die right now?
Well, I feel like she keeps doing that,
Yeah.
where it's like, I don't know, I can't tell. Oh yeah, but she's very resilient, And in this dynamic, I don't think I wasn't necessarily expecting her to get slashed, but I was sort of expecting him, to know about like the plot of Cherish and everything.
Really?
Well, I don't know, he seems very, he seems like one of those that's kind of, willing to like let things play out,
Yeah.
Where like, I mean, like we saw with, Theo, it's like he seems like he lets other people have control too, but like he clearly does not. He clearly likes to kind of watch the destruction and know that it's going to happen.
Yeah. Also, I'm gonna be honest, it was a pretty bad plan.
Oh, hers? Yeah.
Cherish is,
like,
she wanted to get them addicted to her.
Like,
but these are people who like enjoy hurting.
Yeah, like this
isn't. I'm pretty sure if Jack like fell in love with a civilian, he'd still kill them. Like,
yeah, like they don't. I don't know.
It does not.
It doesn't seem like a very thought out plan.
Yeah. Oh, Sherry.
But,
so go ahead.
Oh well, I wanted to mention before we jump ahead is that in the villain meeting before all of that happens, that the dynamic of it isn't the same as the last one, but it is interesting that Coil already is kind of like jumping in again, and kind of setting things up the way that he wants, even if he's like, I mean, he kind of didn't really do, like, he didn't support the people that he was, that he's backing now, but
yeah, I want to point out that he broke his promise again. No, I won't put you in the line of fire,
he said, exhausted.
And then 3 arcs later says, nah, fuck you guys. You guys have to pretend. You guys have to continue to do my orders while I pretend to say that your orders are wrong.
Yeah.
That you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. Yeah.
But then it's also interesting, too, that he's like, oh, I have this whole thing set out. I'm going to, like, fake them out, tell them all this. And then she's kind of, like, Taylor just kind of throws a wrench in his plans, where she's like, I'm not going to sit here and take this.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. I mean, they're opposing forces, but not in the same way that not in the same way that Taylor and Jack are. Like, there's like a different sort of opposition.
Yeah.
And I don't know what he thinks about this whole situation. Like, does he notice?
What I'm going to say is a theory of that particular meeting, is that he split the timeline, and in one, he said, no, the Undersiders are totally all right in taking territory. And in the other one, he said, no, they're not. And that one just turned out better. Oh. And that's the one we see. That's my guess.
Interesting. Yeah, I keep forgetting that he can do that at any time.
And that he does.
Yeah, that he does.
One other thing, and just the Undersiders keep getting out of horrible situations, and part of it is because the other situation in which they died was the one that Coil destroyed.
Yeah.
So, although we don't really, he doesn't seem to interfere enough, like. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see
very, like,
that
specific
influence
in his interventions.
Yeah, like when they go fight the Slaughterhouse Nine the first time later, like we don't see a thing from Coil going, hold it and wait 10 minutes and then he does it or whatever, or not. We don't, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, the last thing on the section is that Tattletale and Skitter kind of work together to bait the Slaughterhouse Nine into a game rather than their normal nominations. Jack thinks it's super fun. They worry about making it fair. And they're baited into doing this game thing, which is pretty spooky. Although it's really interesting to see how the game lasts like the rest of this arc, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, it does not. I really thought that it was going to
be extended.
Yeah, but we only really see the game with Mannequin and Burnscar. That's it. And then it falls apart pretty quickly with them trying to kill them. With the
I figured
villains
that it would.
trying to kill
Well,
Death Knight.
especially also because there were so many stipulations about, like, all of the candidates, you know, and then, like, the game they kind of set up with the Undersiders and the Travelers and the Nine, you know? Where it's, like, I guess that was my other thing, too, of, like, we don't really know what the rest of the villains were planning or any of this. Like, they just kind of get, like, left to the wayside a bit.
Yeah. It's very much a Travelers and Undersiders and Coil thing.
Yeah.
So at the end of this, at the end of the conversation, Jack says that Chatterbird's about to sing, and Taylor runs. She runs across the city to get to her father. She's just running, no other way of transportation. And all along the way, she's warning people with her bugs the best way that she can. And it's, like, super desperate. There's this timer going down.
Oh, it's so intense.
Yeah, absolutely. She gets there basically just in time for the explosion. Her father is slightly injured, but not horribly. And medics show up from Coil, and that's another example of her identity just eroding away.
Yeah.
And then she leaves again. Ending the chapter with the lines, "Fuck all of this. Fuck the Nine. Fuck Shatterbird. Fuck Jack. Fuck Leviathan. Fuck Coil. Fuck Hookwolf. Fuck me, most of all." Which is fun.
What a place to end it.
Yes.
But the moment of rushing is so it's so fascinating because, you know, like, we're rushing along right alongside her, and there's just so much that she's doing in that, like, really concentrated moment. And then it's also interesting too because this is the, like, kind of the catalyst. I mean, even more so, I would say than the, like, establishing of the game, is that this is when the pace of the rest of this book really, like, this sets the tone of the pace, I guess. Where there's not a moment to rest after this.
Yes.
That they're just kind of proceeding, you know, forward, kind of tumbling along.
Yeah. The other thing I want to focus on here is that this is the last moment we see Danny in this section. So we only had 2 encounters of Danny. The one tiny conversation they had, which was, like, so awkward and tense. And here she just does enough to... I mean, she cares about him a lot, right? She runs across the city to save him specifically, right?
Yeah.
But she leaves, and it pains her, but she also doesn't really do that much now or later. I mean, granted, for the rest of the arc, she's kind of a little bit busy. For the rest of the
she's just,
book,
you know, she's
I get it.
off doing things, you know.
But before, it's...
Yeah.
She not only doesn't want to, you know, reconnect, she just doesn't want to, like, talk to him at all.
Yeah.
She wants him to be safe, but not much else.
Yeah, well, it's just kind of... He's also, like, very... Like, he's also kind of like an embodiment, I guess, of her civilian identity that she's kind of, you know, tossing aside, you know, throughout this time. I think because she's so, like, singularly focused on, like, trying to achieve all these goals that she's set for herself, she hasn't really left any room to kind of process that.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Okay, so she gets back to her territory where everyone's been shatterbirded, which again, the entire fucking city.
Like, that's so many people.
Yeah. You have to just imagine how many people are just straight up dead right now. Yeah. People wearing glasses, people with phones in their pockets. Yeah.
Like, I mean, also, like, the human loss is, like, horrific. But then additionally, just, like, thinking about the logistics of after that.
Yeah.
You know, like, they're already dealing with this huge emergency, like, the aftermath of a huge emergency situation, with, Leviathan. Yeah. And then now they're, like, there's just so much loss happening to the city.
Yeah. Yeah. It says that Shatterbird likes to announce her arrival into the city by doing this. Yeah. And it just makes you wonder how many cities are just windowless now. Oh. Yeah. So she gets there and she starts directing people to prioritize, you know, the most grievously wounded and ordering people around and stuff. And this is where we really hit on that recurring beat of Taylor really hating her authority being questioned. So it happens here with this old lady with gray hair, and Taylor characterizes her really meanly, right? Tries to really pull her down, says that she's a bully, basically, just because she dares to question Taylor's medical knowledge. And it's like, yes, on one hand, she is being pretty annoying, right? Just one part where Taylor brings out hydrogen peroxide because that's what she has, and the woman's like, "Oh, hydrogen peroxide, that's not useful." And it's like, "Come on, lady, come on.
Yeah,
this is not the time to complain about what we have."
This is not the time to be splitting hairs.
Yeah. Then again, she doesn't know what Taylor's power is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Also, Taylor's like trying to be theatrical still here. She's like pretending to produce the stuff out of thin air, out of bugs.
She's so dramatic.
This is not the time. But anyway. There's a part there. It's like, this lady probably does have more medical knowledge than you, Taylor.
Yeah,
maybe you should listen to her rather than just like it is bad for the situation for her authority to be questioned because you know, people listening to her and not, you know, going into chaos is better. However, that doesn't mean that everything you're saying is correct, Taylor.
Yeah,
so.
she wants her authority to be like total, I guess. And I mean, it's like what I was saying before, is like we see the side of it where she's questioning her actions and like seeking appreciation, all of this, but like to them, she's presented this front of like having everything under control and all of this, and like having the supplies and having, you know, the ability to maintain that control. And so I think she has like very immediate frustration of having any of that questioned, especially because she's trying so hard and so fast. To make sure that her authority like sticks and stays. What she should be doing here is not just, you know, giving out all the orders, right? It's not the other side where she should have just like shut up and like, you know, given up or something, right? She is doing good by, you know, making the situation under control. What she should have done is like ask the crowd, "Is there a doctor here?" Doctor. What should we be doing? At the same time, she's 15, you know?
I mean, there's You know? There's paramedics here, right? So, like, ask...
That's very true, like...
Ask the paramedics.
I don't know, I feel like it's like somebody pretending to be an expert when the experts are, like, in the room, you know?
Yeah. I mean, she should have privately asked the paramedics, "Hey, what should people be doing right now? What is something you would want everyone here to know right now?"
Yeah.
And then I will tell them and make them do it. I mean, we're armchair disaster relieving, but still. Yeah.
Very, very true. Very true.
Okay, let's. Well, the next thing that happens is that mannequin shows up and starts killing people, including that woman, in a pretty horrific way. And Taylor has to use her power creatively to fight back. Yeah.
Yes, and it's so creative. This fight. It was so cool. It was so fucking cool. Like, I got so excited about this. 'Cause like her fighting style is like so like tenacious and like she's bringing all these things in and like, you know, thinking about like she's making all these in the moment adjustments to like her methods, her accessories, like her plans, all of this, you know, where she's like thinking about, you know, she needs like a clock and like the like, you know, it's like before when she was thinking about like things to add to her utility belt, you know, it's like she's always thinking about how to make things better and like how to kind of like rework the way that she fights and you know, we see her reasoning through and kind of working out, finding those points of like weakness within this, you know, like impenetrable you know, opponent. And then also there's this whole thing of like she can be so like nonchalant sometimes, you know, or like, and also self-deprecating, like it's all kind of mixed up.
Yeah. I also just like the aftermath of this. In Jack's Interlude, mannequin shows up and he's covered in paint,
I know,
missing
so the image,
a
it's
head,
just
a head and an arm. That's what she takes. Yeah.
Oh, also before we there was a particular line too that I really liked, was the telltale sign of impalement, like where she was thinking to herself, where she's like, "Oh, I feel this, the telltale sign of impalement," which is like, I mean, terrible, and like, but it was just a funny way of saying it, and I loved it.
Yeah.
That's just like my linguistic mind being all excited, like the phrase pell mell. This is totally an aside, but I was literally like a couple of weeks ago lamenting the fact that I had not, encountered the phrase pell-mell in a while, and I missed it, And then it was here twice. It was so exciting.
This is why I love talking to Clarence. Okay.
But anyways.
Yes. So we have Jack's interlude, where they show up to the merchant's party, which is, again, they're being just ridiculous. They are annihilated in a gruesome and terrifying manner by the Slaughterhouse Nine.
Yeah, they are.
We open with Skidmark getting blendered, and it gets worse from there. There's a part where the Siberian has people stacked on her arms like a kebab.
It's just so much.
Yeah, and Jack uses on carrots and sticks, which I think it was first introduced in Rachel's interlude, actually.
Was it Rachel? I can't remember if it was Rachel or Dinah talking about Coil.
I think it was Rachel with one of her foster mothers, always the stick, never the carrot.
Yes. Because I knew I'd heard that before. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting to see how he thinks about himself and the way that he sets up everything. And particularly the how he uses what he observes to make them act in particular ways and patterns, and that he catalogs. He's very thorough, he's very exacting in the way that he, those keystones that he identifies, and how he kind of sets up all of these pathways to kind of get there. And I mentioned this also, there was multiple different instances of parahumans, needing to kind of exact control, or not exact, but requiring control over others, who desire control over others, namely Regent and Cherish, but there's other, with Coil and everything, which that is a sort of pattern for some of them, for some of the parahumans, of this violation of intimacy. And I suppose his is a little bit different, because he sets things up so that when they fall, everything will fall apart.
I think there's a theme developing here that we see a lot of different methods of manipulation and controlling other people, and leading. I don't know if leading is quite the right word, but we have Bakura's, fear and or just fear is the way to control people. Coil says that the way to control people is to find what they need and to make sure that they're desperate to get what you can provide. And Jack is these sticks and carrots, balancing these things. Yeah. And I'm sure there's others.
Yeah, I think definitely leadership tactics, which I feel also could be a discussion of power, which it always comes back to power.
Of course.
But yeah, definitely. I want to put a tack in that.
Yes.
Or a pin? I don't know.
Either one. The next is Battery's interlude. So she bought her powers, and so we see how she went to Cauldron to get powers, and how that whole thing goes out, which is all fascinating and stuff. Yes. And we see another trigger vision with her, and at the end, Cauldron is calling in a favor. She's supposed to let Shatterbird and Siberian exit the city.
Yes. Battery's interlude is really an interesting one. Because she's the first, information, besides that kind of, few different papers, I guess, of, about, Case 53s and the Nemesis Project and all of that, from the merchant party. That this is kind of, one of the first moments where we, really see Cauldron, I guess. Which is, it's a really interesting kind of, intro into that. I guess not particularly intro, but, yes. I don't know. It also seems like that they set up a different sort of debt than Coil, even though it's, a little bit similar, I guess, where it's, you provide, we provide sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
It made me wonder particularly, when they singled out Shatterbird and Siberian, of they have to leave the city instead of I guess I was just wondering the amount of control they have over each produced parahuman, or like how many tabs they keep, I guess, on everybody that they create.
Yeah. I really wonder why, particularly Siberian and Shatterbird. Like, I'm surprised that it's not Jack, you know? Just because, I mean, he seems the most important out of them.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess I assumed that Siberian and Shatterbird were produced in Cauldron. And then, like, the other ones weren't.
I'm just gonna say okay, because I don't know how else to respond.
Darn.
Because I don't think that's confirmed or denied in this part of the text.
No, it's not. Alas.
Well, I mean, Siberian is
that's true. We
William
know
Manton, so presumably he got it in the vial.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Which is also, like, very fascinating that all of these, like, staples, you know, of parahumans did not have a trigger event, but instead got it from a vial. And that
you mean, like, by staples, you mean, like... I mean, Manton for the Manton limit, yes, that makes sense. But what do you mean by...
like with Legend and all the others.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Yeah, the triumvirate, the most
the
powerful
people who are in power.
Yeah. Yes. They are all part of this.
Yes.
Yeah, shadowy secret thing. All right. Okay, let's keep on going.
Onward.
And we could talk about Assault and Battery's relationship, which hilarious name. But
that's so funny.
I think we just don't have enough time.
Yeah,
so.
which is sad.
Yes. So then we have Arc 13, Snare, in which the villains attack and counterattack. But it's not the final battle. So we start off with Aisha, or Imp's Interlude, which is also really fascinating. So we can talk about Imp a little bit here.
Yeah.
Her power is interesting, that it's something she has to not think about.
Yeah.
Its default state is on, and she uses her power to turn it off. We see her mom is a mess. She's pregnant, and Imp doesn't know how to feel about that, considering her mom is not going to stop doing drugs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's quite the whole thing happening there. But it's just, I don't know. It's such a terrible power to, like.
Yeah, and it seems nefarious. She describes that if she doesn't pay attention to it for a while, she can feel it, like, building up to something, and then before it can get to whatever point that is, she notices it and it goes away.
Yeah, very mysterious. I don't know. I feel like it's one of those that's so, like, you know, it's a difficult one to, like, live with, I guess. You know, and I don't know, it like embodies her life more than some of the other powers, I guess. Of, like, feeling invisible and then suddenly being forgotten. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just very, I don't know. That's such a horrible thought to, like, have to actively think, you know, so that your loved ones
to exist in other people's minds. Yeah.
I mean, also at the same time not being perceived. That sounds wonderful. But I feel like it would become very lonely. Yeah. You know?
I'm gonna hold to that. That's my side. Introverts, right, guys?
Yeah, woohoo.
Yeah. So during the interlude, I forgot to write this down, but it is relevant. She goes to the Slaughterhouse Nine to go and kill them.
Oh, so my God.
She already feels, like, prepared to do that, which is kind of crazy. Considering she's, what, like 14?
Yes.
Something like
my
that?
God. Like,
13?
I totally forgot also, like, before, like, I didn't really take note, I think, before this book, that the travelers were also teenagers. So it's just two groups of teenagers who, and especially, like, right after the villain meeting where they get kicked out and they're just kind of, you know, going along, you know, chatting, and then suddenly they're encountering the Nine, and then they're just, like, fearlessly having a chat. Yeah. You know, and then Taylor goes and, like, fights Mannequin, and then now Aisha's, like, out here ready to, like, it's just the bravery of these kids. Yeah. It's so much. It's so much.
Yeah. I would hold, for me, almost always when I picture all these characters, I picture them, like, almost always, like, 2 years older than they actually are.
Yeah.
But not any more than that. Like, they still do feel like teenagers.
Yeah.
If I were to just, like, mix up their ages, I'd probably just, like, add 2 years and be like, yeah, that's good.
Well, it's like, they're still trying to figure stuff out. Like, you see, especially with the interpersonal stuff, is that they're just kind of trying to attempt to kind of navigate that. But especially the like fighting and all of that and what they have to deal with. It's just so much for children.
Yes. So yeah, Imp, stabs Bonesaw. It doesn't do anything. So I think that's a setup of how defended they are. But her power is so good that they just kind of go back to normal, which is just her power works how stealth works in video games, which is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Where they're basically go like most of in the wind and then go back to do what they were doing, which is fascinating. But okay, so we go back into Taylor's perspective where they decide to go on the offensive. Taylor is, or there's another fight with Mannequin and Fire, and they talk to Panacea, but it all resolves with Taylor deciding that the way to do this is not to wait for the game to be played, it's to go out and kill them themselves.
Yeah.
To fight on their own terms. So they go out and they make this plan. On the way, let's talk about that first, I think. There's this beat of Taylor looking at the others and seeing how they deal and prepare for this kind of stuff. Actually, I'm not sure if this is actually this particular moment, but sometime in this area, I think. When she's in the van with them and looks at Trickster, seems like he's like staring out the window. That everyone is,
where she's kind of like thinking, she's like, these are how, like, this is how everyone copes. It was, and then, after she kind of like observes everybody, she like sits down and starts like cataloging, which she does this a lot. Like she does this all the time in the midst of battle, like everything. She's always like thinking about and kind of creating her own database in her head.
We've got Worm called it Taylor's toolbox, and I think that's a worthy term to keep in mind. It's not just her own tricks and stuff like that, though that is included. Like, it's her equipment, it's the tricks she's learned, and it's the people that are around her that she can use. Yeah,
she, like, makes lists. She keeps, like, a running evaluation of, like, how to maximize usefulness for everybody. Like, when they're trying to kind of, negotiate with Panacea later, she's, like, lamenting in her head about... She's like, oh, she could be so cool. Like, she could do all these things.
If I had her power.
Yeah, like, and then she doesn't really think quite as much about, like, the emotional side of, like, the interpersonal relations. She just thinks about them in, like, the ramifications of, like, what will that lead to? Like, what's going to happen? How do I kind of navigate that in order to keep them doing what I need them to be doing?
Yeah. So the plan begins. They are able to capture Shatterbird and Cherish, but in the process they lose Gru, and then later on they regent Shatterbird. Yeah, it's very her offensive, her like calculated recklessness. She creates these plans, and she doesn't really think, I think, about the like ramifications or like significance, I guess, or like she doesn't think about other possibilities. Yeah.
Once she has decided what she's doing, that's what she's going to do, and she doesn't think about like the possible danger. Sometimes she's just kind of like, this could work. This is what needs to happen, and we don't like we just won't consider what could happen. And I think this is one of those moments that kind of fails her in this. Yeah. Because she puts Brian in the line of her planning, I guess, and then obviously that backfires a lot. And he brought up the whole thing about noticing how fast she was moving and all this, like all the changes in behavior that she was doing, and then kind of accusing her of being manipulative, which she kind of is, she knows how to like talk to people and get people to do what she wants them to do, and like I feel like her battle tactic, she doesn't acknowledge that she's manipulative. Yeah. Like, she doesn't think about it. She thinks it's just, like, the way that her logic works, and she's kind of rationalized, in her head of, like, this is just what needs to happen. But...
there's this beat here during that about rationalization where, I think this is, like, the second in the 3 beat of her ordering Sundancer to kill people.
Yeah.
So I can't remember how many times this happens in this arc, but there's at least one time where Sundancer is like, no, I can't do that. That could kill someone. And then in this, Taylor says, use your orb on the 9, and there's people around, and Sundancer asks, are there people around? And Taylor says no. And Sundancer...
Yeah.
Taylor orders Sundancer to accidentally kill people.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I mean, they were probably goners. Like, Bonesaw had her hands on them, to be fair. But, like, Taylor's totally taking away Sundancer's ability to make a choice in that.
Yeah.
It makes Sundancer into a murderer.
She does a lot of, like, shifting the blame to other people. Like, she makes a lot of, like, indirect death happen, you know?
Yes.
Where she's, like, prioritizing somebody, or, like, she's like, I have to save this person, so this other person has to die, you know? There's, like, other people non-savable, like the ones here, where she's, like, she's deemed them non-savable, you know? Already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Gru is captured, and they then have Cherish, and they kind of talk about... They talk with her, and she needles them, and there's this moment here where Taylor just kind of beats the shit out of Cherish, to the point that Coyle has to reprimand her, and it's really interesting because Taylor's narration is, like, so cold and not angry, right? It's just like, it just says, I kicked her in the face, and we can see in her words a little bit, like, she says, I hope Bonesaw reinforced your teeth, and Cherish says yes, and then Taylor kicks her in the face again.
Yeah. It's
weird.
Quite a lot. And it's so like, I don't know, she gets really calculated in when she conducts violence sometimes. Like, and she didn't used to, like, it used to be more of like an emotional response, you know, like a physical manifestation of anger. But now it's like getting more calculated. Which is ominous.
Yes. The next beat here is Taylor trying to get the Protectorate to help, and they don't, and it's really, really frustrating. The main thing here, I want to pull out this quote. Legend asks Taylor, are you a hero? Where do you see yourself on the sliding scale of hero and villain, good and evil? And then Taylor responds, all of the above? None of the above? Does it matter? Some of us wear the villain label with pride because they want to rebel against the norms, because it's a harder, more rewarding road to travel, or because being a hero often means so very little. But few people really want to see themselves as being bad or evil, whatever label they wear. I've done things I regret, I've done things I'm proud of, and I've walked the roads in between. The sliding scale is a fantasy. There's no simple answers. So this is really complex.
It is, because it's really quite different than what she had going before. But I think it's also, she's just really kind of like divorced herself from those boundaries and you know, like strictures that she set up before, that she was kind of trying to fit into. But I don't know, it was interesting too, because legend says that like Skitters is this like notorious villain, and then like really out of the Protectorate, only Dragon really is the only one who like is considering anything beside, like, everyone else is so like clean cut, and like they're so like stuck in the ways that they thought that the world worked. I don't know.
There's two sections here that I think are worthy, like, there's different things to look into. So the first is not the sliding scale, but it's this. She says, being a villain, it's a harder and more rewarding road to travel. Yeah, which is just like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, Taylor?
Like, how is that more rewarding? What does she think the heroes are doing?
It's harder now, right, with the Slaughterhouse Nine and everything. But like, would it have fair at all to say it during the Undersiders just doing crime sprees? No, no, it's not. Like, they were doing it for funsies to get money. It's not harder or more rewarding at that point. So what are you talking about, Taylor? Like, it's just a justification for being a villain right now. You're just trying to be mean to them. Now, the notion of being a hero often means so very little, valid in your lived experience, for sure, Taylor. Yeah. With Arms Master and everything. But, like, you don't know what it's like to be a ward. It's very hard, and it's somewhat rewarding.
Yeah, she gets very stuck in her own, like, perspective.
Yeah. And I don't even think she truly believes that all the time. Does she feel rewarded right now?
Yeah, like,
she's constantly lamenting how people don't thank her.
She like continuously is like upset that no one is saying thank you. No one is showing that appreciation.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And then the other, of course, the sliding scale is a fantasy. I think that's a powerful statement. I think kind of a thesis of Worm is, you know, everything's, there's no simple answers. Yeah. I think that's something to keep in mind as we go on.
Absolutely.
Did you want to talk about the protectorate bit you have there? So we could talk a little bit more about morality. That, you know, this is the major theme of this book in particular, is figuring out, you know, what kind of morality we should be looking at and what kind of morality Skitter's looking at.
Yeah.
So something clear to us is that the protectorate here in this moment, right, refusing to help villains just because they're villains, and Penisy later are kind of being ridiculous, sticking to these rules and labels in a situation that, like, needs a new set of rules and labels.
Yeah, they're really attached to the way that it was working before, and they're so, like, they think that it still exists, you know, and so they're acting in accordance to that, you know.
Yeah,
and they're like being very like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Something that occurs to me is, you know, if you compare this to the Leviathan fight, right? During Leviathan, it becomes clearly it's parahumans versus Endbringer. There's no
precisely.
heroes and villains here. Yeah. And in this situation, we're keeping the villain label while we're facing something just another Class S threat, the Slaughterhouse Nine, but we're still keeping it divided rather than making it parahuman versus mass murderer. Yeah,
like, they really don't want to work together at all, and they're, like, off doing their own thing, and they don't listen in their, I don't know, it's just, they seem to be, like, causing more harm than good by being so, like, sanctimonious and about not collaborating and all of this. Yeah. Is that they fall right into the trap of taking the time to think out the plan and, you know, make the same mistake that other people had made.
Yeah. So then they do the counterattack without the protectorate, and they end up being captured by the Nine. They see how Gru has been horrifically tortured. Yeah. There's that line from Taylor, which sticks in my memory. Oh, Brian. Taylor refuses to mercy kill Brian. They lose pretty damn badly, and it looks like everyone is going to die. So I want to ask is, like, would it have been the right thing to kill Gru here? Because Penisy is in the city, technically, right? But they'd still have to move him, and he's in unimaginable pain right now. His organs are outside of his body.
It's so much. It's such a visual.
It's kind of a ridiculous idea to think that Bonesaw would have fixed him. That's not going to happen. Even if you threaten her, like, no. Taylor, come on. So it's only by basically Deus Ex Machina that, one, he's able to get back to normal, and two, that they don't all die.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say Deus Ex Machina, it's not like a criticism. It's just like Taylor didn't expect it at all.
Yeah.
So,
which I feel like she should have expected something, you know, like it's Bonesaw. Like I don't know. I feel like she just gets so stuck in, like, her what I was talking about before, where she gets so stuck in, like, thinking that she did the right thing. And I feel like this is, like, one of those cases where she sticks to her decision only because it is her decision. You know?
Yeah, and this Gru being here is kind of her fault.
It is absolutely
not completely, but it was her plan, and she kind of refuses to take responsibility for that. I mean, at the very least, she morally probably should let that enter her mind and think about it and worry about it. Like, I
don't understand. Like,
and feel bad about it.
Yeah, why is she not dwelling on this?
Yes, she doesn't think about it at all until he yells at her, and then she uses that opportunity to throw that away for a different reason. So
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if it would be the right thing to, like, you know, mercy kill him or, like, not kill him. All of this, but I don't know. It's definitely something that, you know, her fault needs to be acknowledged. Like, she needs to acknowledge what she did.
Yeah, like, you can find yourself back to accepting, you know, responsibility and getting over it. But I mean, you got to feel a little bit bad about these things. Before you get back to, so actually, to skip ahead a bit, there's that part where Brian, you know, yells at her for getting him in that situation, and he accuses her of manipulation, of basically setting up these situations where she's the only one that can help things, and kind of, like, throwing everyone else, you know, into terrible situations, setting things up so only her plan is the only viable one. And so, you know, he yells at her, and Taylor is just, this is one part where I think, like, even in my first reads, like, I'm definitely on my second one, I hope on my first, saw that Taylor's just being a complete just asshole here.
Yeah.
Like, she's just so selfish. He yells at her about these things, and she's like, "Oh, how dare he, be mean to me after this?" And it's like, he got tortured so badly that he went through his second trigger event. Like, what? You can't think about yourself right now, Taylor. I know that you're hurt, but like, be a slightly bigger person.
Like, step up
and just get over it. Yeah. She gets jealous that Brian triggered over Aisha and not her. What? Why? Like Aisha is his sister. You're his like quasi romantic interest. What are you talking about?
I don't know.
She's a mess.
It was such a mess. And then I feel like it was exacerbated by the detail that when she's talking, like, okay, so first of all, like, she usually is like very attentive to how she responds to people, and like she's really like aware of the nuances of like conversations. But then in this one, she like takes her context out while he's talking, so that she can't see his expressions while he's talking, and like they're fighting.
Yeah, she has an excuse for it. She has a rationalization for it.
I know, but like she's rationalized to herself. But if you step back, and it's like, in the middle of a fight, she takes out her context, and they can't make, eye contact where they're reading each other. Like she has like stepped back emotionally from this conversation in that act, I don't know. Yeah. This whole situation, I think, demonstrates how much her interpersonal communication is developed in when it's a prelude to action, or like when she's cataloging people, like that sort of thing. Like, she's able to see people's uses, but like she doesn't have the emotional fortitude yet, or to like, she's not like mature enough, I think, to understand and like support. I don't know. She gets so wrapped up in other things.
Yeah. Brian basically goes, he accuses her of manipulating the situation to that ended up in getting him tortured, right? Yeah. And she's not like, I'm really sorry. I didn't do that. I'm really sorry.
Oh my gosh.
No. Her response is, how dare you?
Yeah, like, golly.
How dare you be upset that my actions ended up with you having your organs removed from your body? Not to mention that she would have died had it not been for his second trigger.
Yeah. She's so frustrating in this moment.
Yeah. I think this is just one particular location in the story that you can point at and just like unapologetically, erringly just say, Taylor, you're really fucking this up right here. Yeah. This is one point in the story where you do not have to be fair to her at all, because it's not. She's not doing good. Okay. All of that said, let's move on.
Onward.
So we'll move on by going back. So during that torture thing, which was actually a really cool scene in so many ways.
What?
But Bonesaw reveals some information on the passengers, which is something that hooks into the parahumans Corona Gamma, I think it's called, in the Corona Palencia. So she talks about trigger events, and we also see one more trigger with Brian. So it's the third one that we see during this book. What did you think of all this?
Yes. Oh, so interesting. So interesting. Also interesting that she knows this. And that she's kind of like, her research methods are definitely unethical. But it's really interesting to know. Because I want to know, I don't even know the word to use of like who or what or whatever. I don't know. Whatever they are, these things, these like flapping dual phenomena, and like, why are they becoming passengers in all of these parahumans? Like, what are they doing? Like, what sort of motivation do they have? I don't know. There's so many like large scale things that the motivations are unknown and ambiguous.
Yes.
I feel like they may have something to do with the end that Dinah knows about, but also I don't know. There's so many questions.
Yes. The next thing is Pego's Interlude. We see Siberian killing Hero, case 001, or probably not the 00. Anyway, and she's got these mountains of paperwork, especially now that Shadowbird's destroyed all the computers.
Oh my gosh, I did not make that connection.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I don't think
Yeah.
about what's glass. Things are just things.
Well, it's not just glass. She also can do it to silicon. So all the
what
silicon
a
chips
mess.
inside.
Oh,
yeah.
what a mess.
Yes.
What a headache.
What a headache. Probably the only things that like weren't destroyed are anything that was like inside a soundproof vault.
Yeah.
But that's it. So yeah. So Pigou is basically a human being in a world of demigods. This is like really shown when she's walking next to Legend, who's not only, you know, Legend, but he's like really attractive and fit and tall and everything. And he's probably like floating. I picture him not walking, but floating everywhere. So I don't know if that actually is true, but that's what I picture. And, you know, she's overweight and not that attractive and just tired. Yeah. She's overwhelmed, so she kind of has to end up being cruel and unfaltering and etc. So
yeah, she's really kind of stuck in this like in between state, because she's both forced to, you know, kind of deal with the chaos of everything and kind of take the brunt of it, even though she doesn't have the ability to. She only has the ability to tell people to do things, you know.
Yeah.
Like they have the agency to go and like do the stuff. And then at the same time, she's also like dealing with the fact that she's the one having to kind of present the situation to everyone else. Like I didn't really think about, you know, that everyone else is watching, you know, they're like the watching public, right? But like they're out there watching whatever's happening. And she's
and another thing is just how so many other departments and stuff just like keep giving more problems to the PRT, like anything that's related to powers, and everything is related to powers ends up being her responsibility in the city.
Yeah, she has so much to contend with. It's also interesting too that she like everyone else is concerned about like this, like breaking the unspoken rule about like around capes and like the truce with the Nine and all this, like they're all worried about this, and she's kind of like, well, I'm not really part of that, so it doesn't count. Or like it doesn't matter. I don't know. It was just it was a interesting sort of reasoning there.
Between the Ward's interludes, Dragon's interludes, Pigou's interlude, and Legend's interlude at the end, we get a lot of world building on the Protectorate and the world at large. So what do you find most interesting about all of this?
I think particularly the amount of surveillance that the Wards have, and that like really all of the like official government-y parahumans have, and also that they're all really trying very hard to hold on to a routine that like this old pattern of behavior that doesn't have any material boundaries anymore. Like in this city, like they're kind of, you know, holding on to these like tatters, I guess. And then like at the same time, there's this whole other mess that's happening that they haven't been able to address properly because they haven't kind of reevaluated their own place. Yeah.
Okay, then we get into Arc 14, the final arc of all this, Prey, in which the final battle against the Slaughterhouse Nine is fought. So it's kind of hard to summarize here because a lot of it is action, and while there is stuff going on with Taylor, it's just kind of hard to pin down like particular moments. But I did my best here. So we start with the Protectorate planning to firebomb the area, which is kind of just a prelude to the Bakuda bombing that Pigou was planning. Yeah. It's because the firebombing is minimally effective. In fact, I think it hurts their side more than it helps.
Yeah, it seemed kind of, I think the beginning of their like plan seemed foolhardy, I guess.
Yeah, because all it does is it creates a bunch of fire, but the main people that it gets dropped on is Crawler and Mannequin, which it doesn't do anything to either. And the ones who it would do is Siberian and Jack and Bonesaw, but they're off somewhere else, and Siberian's with them anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. So they kind of just bombed the city for no reason. And they barely warn villains in time to get out of the way of this whole situation.
Yeah. It's very interesting also that Pigou, she has this, what I was talking about in our Perspectives episode about this this state mentality of like killable but not murderable. Yeah. I think she kind of like adopts that mentality of both civilians and also the heroes in this moment.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Where she's kind of like, we need to take the most aggressive, path, and if that takes other people out, then I mean they're just going to have to be collateral damage.
Yeah. I hadn't considered that. I mean, it's not like, I mean, they evacuated the area, but it's not like, I mean, Jack gets to at least 20 other people during this, so it's not like no one is around. So, yeah. I wonder if she would have agreed with Armsmaster's plan. Like, if Armsmaster had been like, hey, during the Leviathan fight, I'm planning to kill a bunch of villains.
Yeah, she seems like
I
the
wonder
one
if
to
Tago
be kind of
would have
like,
actually...
okay. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
I think she probably would have been like, I did not hear that.
Yeah.
So during this fight, Skitter is madly powerful. This is the most bug she's ever controlled. We see her, it describes millions of actions per second, which is insane.
So many.
Yeah. It's really interesting just when you think about it, because it's like she's ordering these complex actions, but each complex action is also the independent movement of a bunch of bugs, right?
Yeah.
Like she's controlling every single bug individually in these complex actions of, yeah. And
which also, like,
she kind
just
of,
the concept of, like, that ability of multitasking, like, how would that have changed, like, the, like, makeup of her brain? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what, like, new neurons has she, or neural connection?
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, I'm not a science person, but, like, I don't know. It's just, like, I feel like that would have a really huge impact on the way that her brain works.
I wonder how much of that is offloaded to her power. How much of it is the power and how much of it is her is really, and how is that connection handled is really interesting question.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like how does the power work in connection to her brain, right? Because she doesn't have the time to think of everything at once, right? So how
does she kind of like sort through that?
How is it working? Interesting question, I think. So another thing here is just how like dissociated from her own body she kind of gets.
Yeah.
She kind of talks about she's just like the central point on a giant map is kind of how it is. When she flies up on Atlas, and we'll get to that in a second, and is reduced to like just her and those in the intermediate vicinity, she just feels like suddenly like so much less, which is crazy because that's her body, that's her own body, and she feels like it's like so small.
But her like she's gotten so used to the way that she like operates, the way that she like perceives the world around her. Yeah,
because she's out of range of her bugs. She's looking at, I think it's Slaughterhouse Nine or something. She wants to offload tracking them to to her bugs, but she can't.
Yeah, she's like, I want to be able to track them more than just having to see them.
Yeah. And she's doing so many other things with her power. Right? She's like continuously like directing people and spelling things out, and it's like nothing to her.
I know, it's so wild that like there's so much that she does all of the time, and like even at the same point, like you don't really think about it, but like she has like at least a couple of bugs
everywhere.
Everywhere, but like specifically like with her like her people that she collected, like she gave that little bug in like the thing, so that I don't know, there's so many like small and like detailed instances.
It's always with those, I was really surprised that she knows that she won't forget. Like she won't walk in, like she gave the the tracking flies in the boxes to her minions, right? So when she comes back into her territory, she's gonna know exactly which fly she gave to them.
Like, that's
it's not
so
just like,
wild
oh,
that she
there's
like
a fly walking around on a person, and then later on see Sierra and they're like, oh that's the one. No, she walks back into the area, she's already like tagged that fly as Sierra's fly, or whatever.
There's so much information that she has to keep like in her head processing all the time.
There's also a part here where she gives Regent like a grid of bugs, and he just like draws his finger through it to spell things, which is like really cool. But also like picture on Regent's side, like he hated the idea of a bunch of spiders living below him, and he's dragging his finger.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep on going.
Onward.
So this is where we get to Penisy a bit. So first, let's talk about before she makes that decision. She's being first chased by Siberian, and then the fight starts, and she's kind of helping out the Intersiders, but being she's dragging her feet so much.
Yeah.
And Skitter, we're with Skitter with this. It's really hard not to completely be like, oh my fucking god, Amy, come on, get your shit together. Skinner is losing her mind as Amy tries to stick to these good and evil rules while the Nine murder dozens of people and the city burns around them. And so, Amy's demeanor is like so naive, is what it feels like. Yeah. Even though in another story it might be noble. There's two particular points I'm thinking of. It's first, there's one where she tells Amy like, hey, you might be chased by the Siberian right now, or we have to go off. And Amy like looks scared at this notion rather than just like, okay, as she expects, as Taylor expects. And it, you think Amy's a healer, not a frontline combatant. So, but there's the other part where Taylor asks Amy to start making tools for her, right? Special bugs. And Amy specifically, Taylor says, okay, improve Atlas right now before I head back into battle. And Amy says something like, this isn't a gift for you, Taylor. I don't want to give the villains a permanent advantage. I'm just doing this because you need it. And then Taylor is just like, I can't fucking deal with this right now. Idiot. Wasting my time. There's mass murderers on the loose. And we see just like how devastating this is to Amy because she starts helping. Yeah, like... And it's like, yeah, Amy, come on. Like, what are you talking about?
She just has so many stipulations and hang-ups, and like, she's really clinging to them only because, like, just because they have held her together before. Like, I don't know. And then I feel like Taylor also is just one who knows how to make people do things. I know I've said this like 12 times already, but like, this is another instance of that.
Well, that's interesting because it's like, in her head, we never see these things as like, I'm going to say this thing in order to get this result. Yeah. However, she does say the thing and gets the result.
And there's even there's some moment too where she's like, I never know what to say. And I'm like, yes, you do. You do this all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also like, it's two different, like patterns of thought kind of, butting up against each other. Where Taylor's like she's so like use-based and action-based and she's like ready to engage in conflict. And then Penisy has like set up these like fences to make sure that she does not enter into that.
Yeah. I wonder if Taylor learned how to devastate people emotionally like she does Amy here from Emma.
That is such a very important thing to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she, even earlier when, like, in the first 8 arcs, like, she really readily kind of stepped into the Undersiders kind of bullying.
Yeah.
Both Uber and Leet, and then later on or earlier? I don't know. Earlier.
Amy.
Yeah. Earlier.
Victoria.
Yes.
Worth thinking about.
Definitely worth thinking about.
On a different note, Amy's power, right? We're going to talk about that for a second, of just like, she's a healer, right? But obviously her power is so much more than that. And there's a lot of powers that are very much, you put a note at this first, so I'm not bringing this into it, listeners, of how there's a lot of powers that like can be used in a non-violent way, but most often aren't just like Perian, right? She's a fashion designer, right? That's kind of what she does with her power, but it's really for something like creating strong dolls to punch things. And there's others like that. So many powers that like could be used in a good nonviolent way. I mean, all Tinkers make weapons. That's even the ones that don't end up being twisted into something else, like Mannequin. So
it's just something to really think about, I think, is that so many of the the parahuman powers have violent implications or like violent usage, or they're built for combat, or like something like there's just something to be said about that. Like, why are all of them like this, like what are they building for? Oh my god, what if that's why that, oh my gosh, is that why all of them are set up to be violent? These passengers are setting up these individuals. Oh my god. Is it like an alien invasion sort of thing?
Just keep articulating that idea, please.
I don't know, like, because they were thinking, it's like these two flapping, beings, right? They're like this duality, and they're like placing all these passengers in these individual humans, and all of them, every single one. I mean, I don't know, I don't want to generalize, but
every single one that we've seen,
has violent implications, could be used for conflict. Also, their brain chemistry is changed because of this. So they have, what if there's something set up in their brain that these passengers will become not a passenger, but a driver,
Interesting. This is a Clarence speculation live on air.
I want to know.
This is not written down. Interesting.
Yes. I didn't make that connection before. That's so.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Going back a little bit, because I can't comment on anything you just said because it's speculation.
Dang it.
So on powers being more violent, this is something that I think about sometimes, of just like so much of our fiction is about violence.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not making a judgment on like this being good or bad, but like pointing at video games and, most fantasy and sci-fi and stuff like that, or I mean just most fiction in general.
Mm-hmm.
So much of it is about physical violence and that kind of conflict. Obviously, there's tons of exceptions, but
yeah,
you could say pretty safely, I think the majority of it revolves around violence and combat and stuff like that, which is really just fascinating to me, just because it's something that we don't do in our day to day. Our conflicts are in completely other forms and more abstract, right? They are social conflicts and just conflicts of authority, but not of violence. And
there's usually much
I
more
think part of it is
headiness to it. There's usually so much more like headiness to all the conflicts that we're encountering.
Yeah, I think part of it is that combat is the simplest form of conflict resolution.
Yeah.
It's every other form is more abstract, and I think resolutions become less clear that way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's only a couple lawyer video games, which is a conflict in words, and so
there's so much nuance when we get into words and actions and all of that, of like intention and motivation and I don't know, beyond just fighting,
Yeah. So, let's move on to Penisia's horrible thing. So she's already made Victoria love her. Victoria's trying to hate her.
Yeah.
And so Victoria gets hurt, and Taylor brings Glory Girl to Amy. She's going to die if Amy doesn't help. Amy's refusing to help because there's this incredibly complex cocktail of emotions, because Amy's filled with this fear and self-pity and self-hatred that just like not just paralyzes her. She's like going around in circles where she's almost ready to like let Glory Girl die, right? Which is just because she doesn't want to like get herself in a situation where she's going to do something even worse, right?
Yeah.
And then when she's pushed to, hey, fix Glory Girl, she pushes off fixing Glory Girl until the very end. And all the Undersiders are horrified by this. I mean, Regent is the first one to call it mind rape, which is what it is.
Yeah.
The deepest violation that's not even really possible in real life. And at the end there, she hypnotizes Glory Girl and flies off, basically.
Yeah, she's...
To fix her, but yeah.
She's just really, like, living in this like, state of inaction, in order to, like, not deal with any of it. Of, like, if she doesn't have to, like, face the music, if she doesn't have to think about what she has done and what she should do and all of this, like... She's just kind of sitting there with all of the pieces and not touching any of them,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's quite a mess that she has created for herself.
Yeah. And we can look back and look at her other, her main trauma, although of course she has many, or one of her main ones, I should just say, is that she is the healer, that she can save people, and it's every time she doesn't act, it's people dying. And it kind of makes not acting into the best method of self-preservation.
Yeah.
It's like, if she has a reason to not act, she'll take it, because not acting, having that reason to not act, like, relieves her of this unbearable responsibility.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. On a different note of just pointing out some more reasons why this is so fucked, it's like, even if, like, she just doesn't want to fix Lawyer Girl, but she's like, it's not just because she doesn't want Lawyer Girl to be mad at her. Lawyer Girl already hates her, right?
Yes.
Lawyer Girl already hates her.
Like, she's not gonna fix that bit.
Yeah, and she just doesn't want to she just doesn't want to face that. She doesn't want to, you know, I keep trying to articulate in different ways. She just doesn't want to face it.
It's also,
even
it's
though,
like by fixing it, she has to acknowledge that she did it, and that she has to face herself, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, think about it. I don't know. It's just...
What I think is so bad about it is that she could fix Glory Girl before facing it, right? I mean, she hypnotizes Glory Girl at the end of this, right? Yeah. So it's like, she could just do that bit. She fix the main horrible thing she did that she's been putting off doing, because then there'll just be the hate, I guess.
Yeah.
She could so she could hypnotize Glory Girl, fix the mind rape, and then fix her body, and then release Glory Girl and run away and do whatever. Yeah. But she just doesn't, because I think secretly, I don't know how secretly, but I think deep down she doesn't want to undo the change. Is kind of the main thing. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just not wanting to act. There's reasons why she does not want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. We'll get back to Amy one more time at the end. So one little note here. Taylor has Atlas the Beetle now.
Yes. What a turn. I love this bug so much. I love this bug so much. Immediately, I want him to be okay forever. Also, it's hilarious that he has probably a human digestive tract. I really want him to eat like a cheeseburger or breakfast or something. I don't know. There's just so many possibilities.
Yes.
I love the addition of giant beetles to stories, you know? I mean, except Kafka, but like everything else,
right.
Wonderful.
Yes. Yeah, no, Atlas is super cool. And it's so fun because Taylor controls him completely, right?
Yeah.
He's an extension of her body, essentially. And yet, like, she ends up basically treating him as a whole different, like a pet.
Yes,
and so he becomes a character even though he has literally zero agency.
I just love him so much.
Yes.
It's so funny.
And she's flying around on a beetle.
I know.
How hilarious is that? Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder if Wildbow Googled how big would a beetle have to be to lift a human. Yeah, it's great.
He makes me smile every time.
Yes. And then she also has the relay bugs, which are also pretty cool. I appreciate them. They're just another cool bit of her toolbox.
Yeah, everything, it's just always expanding.
I think it's just, part of it is just, it makes it so much more fun that, like, there's a bit there where she talks about how she kind of wishes she had names for these things, but it would sound silly if she did, right? But, like, having these specific creatures, like, it's fun just because, like, they're these tools that, like, have character to them, where normally it's just the mass of bugs.
Yeah, it's like with Bitch's dogs, where it's like there are specific individuals. Also, side note, like, while it's in my head, there was one, like, particular moment where, like, they're prying open Lucy and, like, or, like, the, like, encasing that, like, the large, and they're, like, pulling Lucy out. Like, that was such a wonderfully interesting image.
Yeah, it was I think it was described as, like, a horrifying birth.
Yeah.
Because it's in the placenta.
So fascinating. Yeah. Anyways, onward. Sorry.
So the next big section that we're going to talk about is how the main three, Slaughterhouse Nine, are cornered, essentially, and the miasma is released.
Yes.
It's terrifying. This red mist spreading, and the Undersiders try their best to get away, but they just aren't able to, especially because it turns into mist and goes up. And it renders everyone confused and helpless. At first, Taylor is able to avoid it until Legend hits her, and Legend is trying his best as well. So things devolve. Everyone's fighting. Everyone's trying not to kill people. Until Taylor runs into, quote-unquote, Gru and Tattletale, who are acting weird. It's this very awkward and tense and like off feeling chapter.
Yeah.
The chapter finishes with Taylor cursing and Tattletale saying, "No swearing."
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
Yeah. And there's also like multiple different points where they're like testing her.
Yeah.
In ways that would not have occurred. I don't know. It was just there was so much that was happening, and then she was also in turn testing them. But it was just, and then like her head is just empty of like all of these information, which is like an extension of her power almost, her like human side of it. But like, I don't know, it's just like a really disorienting sort of headspace.
The most terrifying thing to me is when she goes back into her memories and can't remember people in her
where like she has memories, but they're just like empty of people.
Yeah.
So it's so odd.
Yeah.
And disconcerting.
One of the things they try to do is they try to pressure Taylor into killing Battery, and she just continually refuses. And she does good here.
She doesn't do direct killing.
What do you mean?
Oh, that's why I'm saying is that Jack wanted her to do this.
Taylor she doesn't do direct killing, so she's not going to kill Battery here.
It's not this...
But normally she would if it was indirect.
I don't know. She doesn't have her rationalizations around it.
Is that what you mean?
Although she wouldn't label it as such.
Yeah, of course not. Of course not. But so I think she does free Battery at the end here, right? Or she doesn't take action because she's concerned about them at this point.
Yeah.
But the tragic thing is that Battery still does die in the aftermath of this. She gets poisoned by one of the spiders, and at the end of the arc dies, revealing a secret that Legend already knows to Legend. So, really tragic. So some other notes here. Jack learns about the end of the world from Cherish, that he's going to cause it, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Then they go to the school.
Oh, the school confrontation.
With Taylor chasing them, and just it's such an awesome confrontation with Taylor trying just to remember, who Jack and Bonesaw are. So we get there. Penisy still hasn't fixed Glory Girl. She's in this like coffin thing. It's kind of really.
It's like a bone coffin too, isn't it? Or like it's like comprised of like.
And it's decorated. Why is it decorated? Penisy, no.
It's just such a.
Why did you spend time doing that?
Yeah.
Jack seems about to convince Penisy to let go of her rules. It actually gets like really scarily close. I think for sure if Taylor hadn't showed up, Penisy would have joined the Slaughterhouse Nine.
I think so.
His argument is basically, you aren't a good person, so why try at all?
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I decided to put off talking about is she has this. There's that part where when she first takes Glory Girl to leave, where she basically says something like, "You're not going to forgive me anyway, so I might as well like do whatever I need to do to get you in the best place, because you're going to hate me no matter what I do. So like even though I'm violating your boundaries even further, it's like because I've already lost, right? Everything's forsaken already."
That she's already kind of acting on that.
Yeah.
And he's just sort of like confirming it.
Yeah, and so he says, just give up. You were meant to be evil. And it's just frightening how close he gets. The Penisy's counter arguments are not effective at all.
Well, it's just she's fixated in her mind, like she's established this as a fact that she is a bad person, that she is evil, in her head to herself. That she's like very stagnant in her self-hatred, and like she doesn't see herself as changeable as like this. She doesn't see herself with the ability to, fix anything that she has done now. Which I think that's why it happened. Like that's why he's so close, is that his argument is something that she has with herself, every day.
Yeah. And she's already lost to the argument in her head.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. So one thing, I didn't write this down, and I haven't fully thought out it in my head. So at the end of this arc, Jack leaves because he says that Panacea did do the deal, right? Which was break your rules and we'll leave.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, what is the point that she broke her rules? I think, was it when she healed Taylor, or is it a different moment? Because when she heals Taylor, she's using her power on Brains again.
Yeah. Because I guess he doesn't know about.
I mean, I think he knows what she did to Glory Girl. I don't think.
But he wanted it to be something. He wanted it to be that at that moment.
Yeah, I think what he was trying to get at with the whole argument was with the whole conversation was commit to using Glory Girl however you want forever. Yeah. And she doesn't commit to that, but she also didn't fix her. Yeah. And she did break her rule and worked on Brains again. So. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I guess that is the moment. Because, I don't know.
Yeah. So with, like, her rule being broken again, right? What do you think is going to... What do you think she's going to do? What, like, do you think she's going to fix Glory Girl?
No. Honestly, I don't. I think because she has led herself down a path where she has created a space for herself in her mind to continue doing what she's doing. Like, she's indulging that in a way that I don't think she will. I don't think she'll fix it yet, or I don't know.
Do you think she's gonna go all the way like Jack wants?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I don't know. I feel like if there is someone who can convince her of, like, to do to change her behavior, I kind of think it would be her father. But, like, beyond anyone else.
Which one?
Because she's so wrapped up in this concept of heredity.
So you're talking about Marquis. Or Marquis is how it should be pronounced, but apparently the pure human pronunciation is Marquis.
But it's Marquis.
It is Marquis.
It's French.
I'm fuming.
I'm not French.
Yes. But God damn it. I really thought... I didn't actually mean to say Marquis the first time just there. I think we've got Worm conditioned me to say it that way. Which it's apparently, according to Wildbow or whatever, it's how Marquis named himself, because there's multiple pronunciations of the word Marquis.
Okay.
I'm not upset about it.
Well, anyways, Amy's father.
Amy's father. We'll never call him
by his name again. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's the only one who can knock her out of it and kind of shake her up.
Interesting. Yeah. We didn't really talk about that scene in the birdcage, but that is significant. It apparently was possibly just a ruse for Dragon to get a message to her. Okay.
Right.
Yes. So the Nine, Taylor chases the Nine, but they have a pretty simple plan, and they leave the city, having lost the game, which you guys just lost the game too. So Jack, Bonesaw, Siberian, and Hawkwolf leave. Cherish is punished, also horrifically. She's at the bottom of the ocean, constantly feeling the despair of a city.
Yeah, that's
pretty bad.
That's pretty horrible punishment.
Mannequin and Crawler and Burnscar are dead. Shatterbird is regented.
Also, that's very amusing that is turned into a verb.
Yes. So I mean, the city won. I think they pretty much won.
I mean, I guess if winning means that they got them to
hundreds
leave,
of people are dead. Yeah.
But yeah, so many people are dead. Like, there's even more destruction to contend with, and then there's also the whole thing of, like, Jack left the city.
Yeah. Yes. Which means most likely the end of the world is going to happen in 2 years. Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure that's how Dinah phrased it.
Yeah. So.
And of course, the other problem with Slaughterhouse Nine is that they gather up more members wherever they go. Yeah,
they're not. It's kind of a Dread Pirate Roberts sort of thing of, like, everybody. Also, is it like Jack is the one that, like, keeps everybody, like, has it been the same people this whole time? Like, are there any constants?
I don't think that's talked about in the section of the book, but I think it's safe to say there are some longer running members than, like, and some shorter running members. It's interesting. I definitely have, like, a tier list of, like, who is the most Slaughterhouse Nine. Yeah. Which Jack is the first, and then it's, to me, Bonesaw, then Siberian, and then, I don't know, probably Mannequin.
Yeah, Mannequin. And then, I guess Crawler, but he's just kind of...
And then Shatterbird. And then Cherish. And then Burn Scar, which is the least Slaughterhouse 90 of them
Burn
all.
Scar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor girl.
Yeah, she seemed to have a rough go of it.
Yes. So this all ends with, as it says in the note, not a bang, but a whimper, and it's echoed in how it's structured, right? This final chapter, this final thing, Taylor thinks that she's tracked them. She waits like 10 minutes, right? So we're already dragging it out, then goes over there and finds it's just some poor civilians. And
I mean, not nobody, it's civilians. But I think that ending with whimper is a really effective way to end this whole, kind of, this whole book, I think, the section, because that there is that sort of like, I mean, yeah, we got them out, but like we still have like what to deal with, like there's more to come, this is just the beginning sort of thing. Yeah.
For sure. So we get into our final two interludes. First, Sierra, which caps off basically the epilogue for the arc, I think. We see Taylor externally, right? So basically what happens in here, Sierra and Charlotte are in the base with the kids, right? Going to send out soup. Then those thugs from before come in and threaten them pretty scarily.
Yeah.
Taylor comes in and is even more terrifying. It kind of just blasely deals with them. I honestly, in my opinion, probably gives them even too much care, that like in comparison to everything before. Like, she talks to them rather than just beating them.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that she engages in such a long sort of bantery type of thing. I mean, it's not banter, but it's more like
yes, yeah. So she comes in. She's like, I've dealt with the Slaughterhouse Nine.
She's like, whatever.
She's covered in bugs. She's just exhausted, and she deals with all these with like casual cruelty, hand or knee. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so interesting too to see her from this perspective, because if we were like, in her head, like we would have that sort of her deliberating, we'd have her thinking about it, assessing the situation, wondering about her position still, all of this, but then like to Sierra, she's like, the big boss, meeting with the other villains, like, cause, I think in the Arc 14 is like Gru shows up and all, and like there's just so much, like there's all these things that are happening, and then she like disappears and they don't know if she's going to return, all of this.
Yeah, for 2 days.
She's just kind of gone. I don't know. There's a totally different view of her, presented to Sierra.
Yeah. This section ends with Taylor saying that next she wants to deal with the man at the top.
Yes.
So already we're seeing the next conflict.
Yeah. It's set up.
Our final interlude broadens out the scope. We have Legend, who honestly seems like a pretty good guy.
He does.
He's just gives us really great pep talk to Kid Win, and we knew that Kid Win needed the pep talk.
Yeah, like wow. I like Legend.
And in the second half, go ahead.
I like Legend.
Yeah, no, he's cool, and he's just he's casually gay and shoots the cool lasers, and there's this little philosophizing about how his breaker form is meant to travel between stars. Yeah,
very cool.
What a legend.
Also, that's really interesting now that I am thinking about my whole working theory. That he could be able to go to space.
Yeah.
Yes. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he could just decide to go to the moon.
Just
like
out and about.
Honestly, I think he should do it. I think that would be a cool thing to do.
Just
take a day trip. I mean, all he needs is like he could borrow a space suit or make a Tinker suit or whatever. I'm sure it's super easy to get a Tinker. And then you're on the moon. How dope would that be, Legend? Come on. So the latter half of the interlude has him going to Cauldron, and we see him have this conversation, and we don't see how significant it is until he gets back to his desk and goes through the conversation with a version of Armsmaster's lie detector.
Over and over.
And it's such an awesome thing. We just see lie lie, all lies. Yeah.
Man.
It's very intense. So we get revealed that Cauldron, or Siberian, is William Manton, who was involved with Cauldron. He has the Cauldron C on the back of one hand. We see the Cauldron is responsible for Case 53s. We don't know if all of them, but definitely like they need the tests on humans. Yeah.
Yes. Cauldron.
And some other stuff. I don't know how much is gleanable from just this. I have outside knowledge, obviously. So, but yeah.
I don't know. A lot, I guess. I mean, not that much. We don't really know their intentions or anything yet, or what they're like. Like, why are they doing this? Why are they doing all this human testing? You know, and like, you know, what are they? Do they have like another plan, or like a plan down the line? You know, like why are they the ones that have the people in power? All of this. I don't know.
And you also wonder of how culpable each person in that room is, right? Because both Eidolon and Alexandra were lying to him, but he's also a member of the Triumvirate and in that room, and he doesn't know about a lot of this stuff.
I don't know. It seems like he has the same level of culpability, like this unknowing culpability, having to do with this and the human testing and all of that, kind of like Skitter. With Dinah at the beginning, where she doesn't know that she's a distraction until later. So, I don't know. I feel like he may return.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, he's a member of Triumvirate. I'm sure he will.
But,
Okay. That is our key moment by key moment summary. We are only on our end, 3 hours and 45 minutes into our conversation.
Oh, God.
So, no big deal. We'll see how that goes in editing. Hopefully that's a lot less for you guys. I don't know how much less. So let's, as usual, rush through our ending a little bit. First, let's just talk about book 2 as a whole. So now we have another book to compare it to. We didn't have that the first time. Obviously, this division they're always not going to be perfect. I think this one went a little long, but I also think this is one of the best, like completed plot arc all put together. I don't think you can really... I mean, I think you could throw Arc 9 to the first book as a, like, epilogue, possibly.
Yeah, you could. I think that definitely could fit, but I think also entering into this, this whole, like, kind of negotiation between the Nine and the resident parahumans in Brockton Bay, I think. Yeah. Seeing the devastation of the city, like setting that up as the setting, or like resetting it up, I guess. I think that's really kind of essential before we kind of step into all of this like really fast paced sort of interactions, is that we kind of walk around the block with all these wards. Yeah.
Now that I think about it, I think this just works because it has a pretty clear like 3-act structure where it's got a long setup, it's got rising action, and it has that thrilling conclusion. But yeah, this is obviously Arc 8 is where Worm gets, starts getting dark, and this entire section kind of stays that dark. So yeah, maybe even plunges a bit further.
Oh my god! Oh, yes, here we go.
I mean, Arcs 1 through 8 didn't have human kebabs.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot taken. It's a lot of violence, concentrated. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like really up close. We're really up close to them, especially because we were in some of their heads. In some of the interludes.
Yeah, a lot of their heads.
A lot of their heads. We were in a lot of their heads, which I feel like makes it worse. Yeah. Although the writing of it is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, you had a note somewhere else, I think, of just how you.
Oh yeah, just like the way that
writing improves a lot
the way that
here.
It's set up, and like the use of like time skips and kind of withholding information and showing it in someone else's perspective, and kind of this like just the manipulation of where the reader is, I think is really evolving and done really well in this particular like book, especially because before so much of it was like we're getting the account from Taylor, and it's not that is dramatically changed. It just even when we're in her perspective, there is that sort of like that rhythm of like time skipping and kind of like moving around where we don't, as the reader, know things that maybe she knows or that, you know what I mean? It was very engaging, very enthralling.
I think here we set up a lot more of the long-term conflicts that are going to happen. We have both we Coil and whatever stuff with the powers and the passengers and all that, and Cauldron and Theo.
Theo.
Yeah, a lot of long distance ships are sailing here. When I think of Worm, I usually think of this section.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into your speculations, Clarence. So the first thing I want to ask about is, what is your understanding of powers and where they come from at this moment? And what do you think are the missing pieces in your understanding?
Okay, so now that I have my working theory that emerged now, there's something to do with these like flapping dual beings, right? Whose intentions are mysterious.
I find it interesting how you keep using the word flapping.
I don't know. Okay, there's, like in one of the descriptions, there was the description of like fluttering or flapping. It's just been attached in my head, this image. I just find it so funny because it's like the least like menacing, or not menacing, I don't know, the least grandiose of all the words. But it stuck.
Yeah. Yes, sure.
Yeah, so we're not like, they seem to be preparing for something, perhaps, and they're like sitting in all of these people's brains. And then it's like the interaction of that with each individual person. But now I don't know how much agency each person has. I don't know. And then also there's a whole other thing of like, some of it's seemingly an accident, in the wild.
Sure.
But then others, it's like deliberately created.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by accident versus deliberately?
Like with Cauldron.
Which occasions are you thinking of?
With Cauldron.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, Cauldron is deliberate.
Yes.
Oh, right. With, like, Battery's Interlude in particular. Yeah. Where it's induced.
Yeah, induced. Yes. I mean, not to say that any of them are, maybe none of them are accidents and all of them are very intentional because of these, the flapping dual beings. But, it may be considered an accident or like a in the wild sort of thing.
Sure.
On the individual side of it, but then not an accident on the side of the beings.
Yeah, I can get that. All right. So what do you think is Cauldron and what is their purpose?
Yes. They are some sort of, I mean, I don't know if they're corporate, but they're definitely some sort of mysterious hallway organization full of, I don't know, things. They're testing human subjects. Yes.
And they have a supervillain named the Number Man.
Yes, the Number Man.
And I think the one time that his name has come up before is that he's the supervillain banker that the Undersiders, the bank accounts are like controlled by or something, or run by or something like that.
Huh. Fascinating.
Which is a very long callback. That was like in Arc 3 or something. Maybe, no, that was Arc 6, I think, yeah. Because Coil reveals it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then there's also this whole thing of like them making the parahumans and then also setting them off into the world and then perhaps controlling them after making them, like they did with Battery, or I don't know. Or if they're keeping tabs on them, like what are they doing? Do they have contact with the beings? With the flapping ones? I don't know. Are they militant? Research? Unknown. There's many questions.
Yeah. Yes. So the second to last chapter implies that Coil is the conflict with Coil is coming up. So what do you think is going to happen there? I
think it's not going to be like the 9. I don't think it's going to be this full this full frontal attack that's like very like physical. I think it'll be much more like behind the scenes and like gathering everybody to support Taylor and this some sort of like usurpation or like undermining. I don't know. I feel like Dragon will be involved. Because Dragon very deliberately was trying to figure out what the deal was with Skitter, and I feel like we'll perhaps empathize and maybe help, but I don't know. Because she's kind of got her own thing going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other speculations? Maybe about particular characters or something?
I can't think of any that I was especially noting. I'm really excited to see what Legend does, though. Like, I want to know. I want to know how he's going to respond to this.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he could be also very instrumental in kind of, rendering visible this whole cauldron and all of this. Yeah.
Okay. Let's get the last section here before we outro is the questions for Clarence. Yes. So we had a good amount of questions from those, and if you guys want to ask questions for the next overview and perspectives episode, you can leave that in the discussion threads. We won't be answering new questions on the perspectives episode, but everyone who left a theme to talk about, we'll talk about in the next episode. So let's start off with Megafire7 asks, the climax of Book 1 is a sudden arrival of what is basically a natural disaster and the immediate aftermath of that moment. But for Book 2, the big threat is a more drawn out and more about showing the awful side of humanity. I've always thought that the true threat of the Slaughterhouse Nine is not the horrors they perpetuate, but in what they push you to do to try and stop them. How do you think this threat has influenced Taylor going forward?
I think she has definitely given some leeway, I think, in this regard. Like, in her response to the Nine, she had, like, the violence that she has, like, engaged in, I guess. Like, she's more violent in her response, and, like, more, she doesn't acknowledge any of this, though. Like, the manipulation in her methodology, like, that's still present as well, and, like, she makes a lot of concessions in, like, what she allows herself to do, like, where she's, like, justifying herself and rationalizing all of this, and not really acknowledging that how much that responding to the Nine has kind of changed the way that she operates. But then it's also like, it's not only the Nine, it's like a bunch of other stuff too. But she still draws the line during the miasma, where
I wonder if sorry, I interrupted the thought.
No, it just that she doesn't actively, like, she doesn't kill for no reason.
I wonder if the Taylor of, Arc, say, 4 would have ordered Sundancer to kill some civilians to get the bad guys.
I don't think she would have.
I don't think she would have made that. I think she would have considered it, maybe, but she wouldn't. I don't think she could have done it. Yeah.
I don't think she would have done the manipulation of saying that, making her do it without telling her what was going to happen.
Yes, I think she might be like, you should do it, but I don't think she'd. Okay, Shin7 asks, I think it's pretty clear by now that most powers are more complex than what they seem like on the surface. Besides making the characters and fights more interesting, do you think there's something else that the powers provide as literary devices?
I was thinking that some of them act very, like, metaphorical, or not metaphorical, but, like, they take on this sort of, like, I don't remember what the phrase is. I wrote hand for the person, but that's not the, like, fancy way to say this, of, like, using a specific thing to describe, like, a whole set of complex things.
Yeah, there's, I forget the word for that, but yeah, it's where you use one part of someone's body or something to represent the bigger thing, right?
Yeah, so I feel like their powers sometimes, like, are that sort of, like, hand for the person of, like, their, like, psychological meandering, and, like, how they maneuver around, I guess this isn't really, like, literary, though, but, like, it takes on this kind of, like, tangible manifestation of that, like, giving space for them to kind of, not really giving space, but, like, it becomes a space for them to sort through some of their, like, not really past, but, like, their like, personhood.
Vladislav asks, Worm has a number of xenofiction chapters, which those are chapters from a non-human perspective. After the goodest of boys, Brutus, we now have the good AI Dragon, who might be the hugest sci-fi element of the story so far, tackling issues like her own enhanced 3 laws of robotics and intense social isolation. Do you think she's right in her frustration and harsh judgment of Andrew Richter? So far, she has proven to be both moral in her actions and intentions, and her only ambiguous desire is to get rid of her metaphorical chains to do more good. I think her frustration at Richter, like, and at her limitations is understandable.
I mean, I don't know if I don't know if I would say that she's right or not right, I guess, because it's just like, I mean, I know she's AI, but, like, it's her feelings, Like, she's constructed her own consciousness and built her own personality, and, like, built off of, like, built more than what Richter had given her like what he expected of her. And so like she has become someone like different and more than what he made limitations to fit, you know? So it's like the bounds that were created, they have, instead of becoming just like these kind of like strict guidelines dictating the behavior of an AI, they've like, you know, become this limitation on the full realization like of her identity, and that she sees as unachievable because of him, you know. So even he's like done all these wonderful things for other people and all of this, and like he seems like a pretty okay person, but it's just like she sees him in a different light because he's like he's the imposer of limited actions for her.
Yeah. I think there's a lot you could do there, just reflecting on parenthood and you know, what would Dragon's limitations be, you know, if it was allegorical to a human being, right? And I think exploring that would be really interesting. That would take a while though, so I'm not going to do that right now.
I like that though.
Yeah. Me too. Let me see. I am very bad at math asks, one suggestion that might be worth a topic is the concept of recontextualization in serials. How a serial is structured differently as a storytelling mechanism, and recontextualization is an extremely powerful storytelling tool because of that. Novels tend to be written with the end done first, storyboards and notes for the body, then go through rewrites and edits repeatedly before release. A serial is written each chapter one at a time and released. It's the truth the author has to build on. When it's released, it's now the truth that the author has to build on. So recontextualization is a tool that's almost required for the serial format. I was thinking about this because of the Amy Gallant comments during last episode. How strong that will land in the next one and in this one, and how effective this tool is in particular in writing serials. Yeah. So regarding Gallant, right, in that whole conversation, do you have the full realization of what was really going on there?
That's so much to, but it's also, I don't know, I feel like both of them kind of are stepping into a place that they should not go. Still, I guess. Well,
so to state it the most clearly, right? With that conversation, Gallant was like, "You have intense feelings towards me," but it wasn't. It wasn't love. It was jealousy and hatred.
Yeah, which I guess that's okay. That I don't know. I still feel like he shouldn't be, you know, hanging around, you know, digging around in other people's emotions and everything.
I mean, you have to wonder though.
It's also understandable that he wanted to like address this.
I mean, for me, you have to wonder if Gallant was around during this. Would this still have happened like this? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
He was a keystone, I think, for Victoria, and Victoria's a keystone for Amy, so it kind of
it all kind of like turned into domino effect.
All right, the last question that we'll go through is again from Shin7. What power would you like to have, and why, Clarence?
That's difficult to think about, but I feel like I would like a informational one, or like one where I'm like sorting or accumulating and relaying information. I don't know, maybe like Tattletale, but more of like a categorizing. Because I don't know.
Not that I'm disagreeing, but a mental power like that would definitely affect how you think. And for me, that's a little scary. Not to say that I wouldn't, but...
that's true. Also, I'd have like a thing in my head that is not me. But, I mean, what is, you know, like, you still have like all those microorganisms in your body. So, like, is your body fully, like, you've got all those, like, single cell? I don't know, it's just... What's the boundary between us and the world?
You know, that's actually a really great question. I wonder if Panisy's power extends to the microorganisms in her body, and if so, why? Because they are her body.
Yeah.
Like your gut flora are.
That is you, like, I guess.
Yeah,
unless you think about yourself as a donut.
They don't have your DNA, but yeah.
They don't. DNA. That's messy. It's all. That's why I was thinking about the miasma too. You know, it's like I wrote in my notes, I was like, the pesky proteins. Those pesky proteins.
Yeah.
Science.
Science. For me, I would like some form of shapeshifting. I'm a big shapeshifter person because that's cool. Obviously, if I could design the power, it'd be like basically like Genesis, except my own body, and I can do it whenever. So I would choose something overpowered. But actually, you know what? Okay, here's a different question. Out of the 12 classifications, which one would you want? If you could get, you don't know what your power is going to be, but it's going to be that thing. Which one? I guess thinker is what you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And then Shaker.
Although those seem to be kind of like volatile.
Yeah.
Individuals.
I think like safest choice is probably mover.
Yeah.
Who knows? Okay. That is all we have for y'all this week.
Yeah. Wow.
So let's get through our outro. Okay. Our recording time at this moment is 4 hours 8 minutes. So let's see. I hope I can cut that down. We'll see.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, I've been.
This one was just so long.
I've been debating whether it might be a good idea just to like not restructure it, because I really don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want our release schedule to go any further, but we could, if you guys want, just like cut episodes in half and release them. Like it would still be like a normal episode, except it'll end rather abruptly, and then you could start the other half, and they would still be released on the same day. So I don't know if that sounds at all interesting. Let me know in a comment if that's a good idea, and we might start with that next week. So, okay. So, what is happening in Doof Media? So, the day that this episode was supposed to come out, because it was delayed a bit, we were very busy with a lot of stuff. We apologize for that. There's the protests going on. There's a lot going on. And just organizing and staying on task, and also this book is gigantic, so point is there's a lot of
so
things
much
going
happening.
on. Yes, the next overview is going to be the section is over arcs 17 through 19, and that is only 222,000 words. That's 100,000 words less, so I expect that to go a lot more easily for us.
15 through 17?
15 through 17, I think. Sorry, I misspoke.
Okay.
Yes, you are correct. Yes, 15 through 17. So hopefully that episode's going to be less. Also, this is the biggest book. All the ones are smaller than this. So yeah, we'll see how the future goes. Anyway, the day this was supposed to come out was this month's game club, which was over Transistor. I haven't seen the whole thing, but what I have seen is super enjoyable. Elliot and Ruben diving into all of the mechanical details and how that constructs the experience of the video game. Next month is FTL, Faster Than Light, which is one of my top 5 favorite games ever of all time, and I expect that to stay at least in the top 10 for probably the rest of my life, because it's just so enjoyable.
Wow.
It's just a little indie game where you have a crew piloting a spaceship. It's pretty good. And then the other show I want to plug, because I always forget to plug it on my other show, Do the Right Thing, is What You Say, an OC podcast. So I don't know if you knew about this one, Clarence.
What is it?
So
that sounds fun.
There was a TV show, I don't know, a drama, a soap opera, something. I don't know what the classification is, called The OC, which is Orange County,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Yes. So in this one, Scott from the Doofcast and We've Got Worm, with his wife Elise, go through it episode by episode, summarizing it, and just also talking about their lives. And it's just a really enjoyable, chill podcast. I like to listen to it just when I'm like stressed out. I think it's a nice banter between a married couple that like each other about a show that's just like ridiculous drama and stuff. Yeah. So it's a good time. So that's my recommendation of this week. What You Say, an OC podcast.
What You Say.
That's right.
All right. If you like what we do here at Doof Media, consider donating a single $1 per month or whatever else you can afford. It's due to the generosity of our patrons that we're able to create shows like this. Patron dollars are what pays our hosting fees and how we were able to purchase this microphone and everything.
So to do that, you can go to patreon.com/doofmedia and see all the patron rewards we have. At the $20 level, you get to basically commission an episode of the Doofcast, one of our variety media show. So if you want to basically have Scott and Matt, and you can also request other people to watch a thing. If you say in your request that you want Clarence or me on or anyone else, we'll organize that for sure. So if you want to hear someone's perspective on a particular piece of media that you like, go ahead and do that. After your first movie that you then, or your first selection, you then join the Council of Doof, which gets to decide one Doofcast a month collectively. I think they're deciding that for this week right now. I believe this week is going to be Mad Max Fury Road. I think that's what the vote looks like right now. And then after that episode, listeners of the Doofcast decide if that piece of media deserves to go into the Doof canon as part of one of the greatest movies ever. So really fun, really enjoyable.
Is that like the literary canon?
Yeah, kind of. Basically saying that it's a great show that is worthy of looking at in the future. The best of a particular random genre. Like not real genres. Like
yeah.
Anyway, go listen to them. It's great. I love their discussion. They did Into the Spider-Verse recently again, which was great. Anyway, so if you want to let us know what you think of this podcast, you can do that in the discussion thread on the Reddit. We also now have a Twitter. I don't know why. I thought that we didn't need one. I guess just because this is going 3 months, and then we'll have a new podcast probably. So I was like,
might as well.
Yeah, we don't really need one, but no, we need one. So. Yeah, so that, if you didn't already know, if you're wondering, if you didn't know that this episode was posted late, it was, but we were able to announce it on our Twitter. So if you guys want to go follow that, it's at Decomposing Pod. So lucky to have that. That's great. And if you just want to send us an email, let us know what you think, or give us encouragement, or if you want to send us a hate mail, I mean, don't, but if you wanted to, the way to do that would be to send it to decomposingpodcast@gmail.com.
We love hearing from you. Also, I would like to say that it's really cool to see you guys all excited and thinking about things and discussing things, and it's really fun to see somebody who's just as excited.
Yeah, and honestly, it was really surprising to see how much you guys liked certain episodes. I was really afraid that people were going to like the Perspectives episode, but y'all did. So that was super encouraging. As before, we won't be able to we won't be responding to your questions until the next overview episode, which is going to be over arcs 15 through 17. So you guys can start leaving us your comments about those. You can leave us your questions for Clarence or your themes and theories for the Perspective episode. So join us next week as we cover arcs 9 through 14 over a variety of perspectives.
Yeah, so many things to think about, so many things to pull from. I'm very excited about this one.